What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Good morning and happy Friday. We got a little football Friday coming at you. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials. 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Also available online. SportsTalk1051.com. Google and Alexa home devices. Video stream. Also up and rolling on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Happy Friday, everybody. January 5th. Appreciate you making us part of your start on this early morning. What do we got on the good old game plan for us? I think you all know what we're going to be hitting up right away this morning. It's almost game day. Packers, Bears, win and in for the green and gold. Can the Bears, their main rival, stop the Packers from advancing into the postseason? A lot is at stake here for Sunday. Let's break it all down. What are your key matchups to victory? What are your keys to victory? Your predictions. Start hitting me up right now with some texts at 715-830-1912. All right? Let's get her going here this morning. How is it starting? I think it finally hit me just a little bit ago this morning about this game on Sunday. Finally, the adrenaline starting to kick in. I'm a little under the weather, so I apologize. My voice kind of goes out or comes in and out, but we're going to power through. And I think that adrenaline just really kicked in about for Sunday just a little bit ago. So Packers yesterday back at practice as they prepare for this game on Sunday. Really, nothing major in terms of the injury reports. In fact, a couple of guys who were listed as limited upgraded to full. So I mean, Dontavian Wicks being one of them upgraded to a full participant. Man who missed last week's game. So here we go now, baby. Here we go. So what do you got? What are your keys to victory? Your key matchups, your predictions. Going to break it all down coming up here in just a little bit. We'll throw a little Bucks chats in this thing as well. Bucks picking up a win last night against the San Antonio Spurs, just squeaking out a victory against the San Antonio Spurs, 125 to 121. But Giannis led the way, scoring 44 points, grabbing 14 rebounds, 7 assists. Next up for the Bucks, be a matchup against the Houston Rockets tomorrow. So we'll throw a little hoops talk in there. We got Brandon Berg that'll be joining us starting in the 7 o'clock hour. We'll get a lowdown recap on some of the local stuff that's going on and preview some of the stuff coming up, including a big win for McDonald girls basketball last night to remain undefeated. They defeated Fall Creek 64 to 44. So we'll chat with Brandon about that. Eau Claire Memorial boys hockey picking up their 7th straight win last night, this time over Menominee. So plenty to recap and look ahead to with Mr. Berg starting in the 7 o'clock hour. Right before he pops on, though, we'll catch up with our doc, Dr. Austin Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, for a little inside the training room this morning. Also on the dockets, we've got Cream of the Crop. And reminder, you can play along with us when we do our Cream of the Crops on Fridays. You can nominate your own Cream of the Crops if you'd like. You just got to shoot us that text. Okay, just got to shoot us that text over there on that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line. We'll get to that probably in the 8 o'clock hour, along with the Carpet City Flooring Center local spotlight, as selected by Mr. Berg over there. So, usual, typical Friday rundown, right? So, but I think you all know the majority part of what we're going to be hitting up here this morning. The final week of the regular season in the NFL kicks off tomorrow. We've got a couple games on the docket for tomorrow. Steelers, Ravens. Can the Steelers put up a win and get some help and get into the postseason? Can the Houston Texans get into the postseason, or the Colts, Houston and the Colts, battling it out on Saturday night? We've got a bunch of teams still potentially could clinch some playoff spots here. I think I saw it was at 20 teams still mathematically alive in this thing entering the final week. Now, some need a lot more help than others, obviously. But when you look at like the AFC here, the AFC South still up for grabs. The 3 seeds locked down with Kansas City, 2 seed up for grabs. That's why that Miami and Buffalo game is big time. That's why it's Sunday night, because Buffalo get a 2 seed or be out of the postseason. And then you got the 2 wild card spots still remaining over there too. Cleveland clinching one of those spots, but the 6 and the 7 right now still up for grabs here too. So, lots at stake still in the AFC. You still got Pittsburgh alive, as we mentioned. Houston is alive right now. The Colts holding on to that 7 seed. In the NFC side of things, you've got the NFC South still up for grabs. Tampa Bay currently holding on to that spot. Green Bay holding on to that final wild card spot. But with a win and a Rams loss, Green Bay could move up to that 6th seed. Maybe where they would face the Lions, who the Lions currently are the 3 seed right now. Dallas holding on to that 2 seed. Then you got Philly holding on to the 5 seed right now. But you look at, the NFC, Seattle still alive, New Orleans still alive, Minnesota still alive mathematically. So Atlanta still alive mathematically on this thing too. So we got a lot at stake here in the final week, and that includes Green Bay versus Chicago. Depending on how this thing goes up, I mean, you could potentially see Green Bay and Minnesota and Chicago all lining up with the same exact records when it's all said and done. If Chicago beats Green Bay, and if Minnesota beats the Lions, but we'll approach that if we ever get to that point here. But let's start to hear from you. All right, start sending me those messages. Let's break everything down. I know we talked throughout the week a little bit about Bears offense, Justin Fields. Yesterday we talked about the Bears defense and how well statistically they've been playing. But as we threw out there too, do you not to make excuses or anything like that, but do you look at the type of the competition that they looked at? According, Zach Cruz tweeted this out yesterday. Bears defense is playing on a high level, but matchups are important over the last 7 games they faced. The number 31, the number 23, the number 25, the number 22, and the number 26 offense is ranked by DVOA. And 2 of the games were against the number 5 Lions, which they gave up 31 points on the road and 13 at home. So, man, that adrenaline just kicked in, baby. It kicked in like maybe a few minutes before we turned the mics on. It kicked on, baby. Yeah, looking at some of these numbers here too. Jordan Love, if you're looking at Justin Fields, you're looking at his last 6 games, 60% completion percentage, 5-3 touchdown ratio, passer rating of an 80.9. Comparing to Jordan Love, who's got a 68.4% completion percentage, 16-1 touchdown interception ratio, passer rating 109.9. So let's just do it. Let's just do it. Let's take that first break and let's jump into it. I know it's a little bit early, but I want to start breaking this down, and I want to start talking Packers and Bears, and I hope you're starting to text me right now or sending me some messages over here with this matchup, baby. So let's get her going. First break and then breaking it all down. It's almost here. We're a couple days away from Sunday afternoon. Win and in for the green and gold. Key matchups, keys to victory. Let's break it down. It all comes down to Sunday afternoon. We have 25 spots in postseason on the line for the green and gold. The Packers prevail, unlike last year where the Lions ended their hopes of securing a playoff spot and ending the Aaron Rodgers era in Green Bay without making a postseason appearance. And the Bears slow the roll of the Jordan Love era and have to delay his first appearance into the postseason. We'll find out in just a couple days here, but let's start to break it down and preview it and key matchups, keys to victory, all that good stuff. We've kind of hinted at, or I shouldn't say hinted, we've kind of talked about a little bit, Bears defense yesterday. And looking at the last few weeks, they've been playing really well. Do you factor in who they've gone up against? Does that really matter at this point just because they're playing good, taking care of the competition that's out at hand for them? How do you view this thing? What's your predictions? All right. So just to kind of look at everything like we usually do on a normal football Friday, let's see how these teams have kind of gone about their business throughout the season. All right. So yesterday again, we highlighted the last few weeks here for how well the Bears have played. But overall, this season, offensively, in terms of yards per game, this Bears offense has been putting up 331.4 yards per game. Okay, 331. That's about middle of the pack in the NFL. If you want to break it down by passing, then they're towards the bottom. They're just averaging about 186.2 yards per game through the air, which probably doesn't surprise a ton of people. Probably doesn't surprise a whole lot. However, what the Bears do really well is what? Run the football. And what's maybe the biggest concern that Packers fans have when it comes to their defense is stopping the run. And it all kind of goes down to Justin Fields. Now, when you look at this, when you're looking at the numbers in terms of rushing, Justin Fields still leads the Chicago Bears in rushing. 630 yards in 12 games. Remember, he missed some time there. 630 yards. If you're looking at the running backs, you got Herbert there, 583 in 11 games, Foreman in 9 games, 425. That's your top three leading rushers for the Chicago Bears. It's Justin Fields, and not to say to ignore Herbert or anything like that, because he can be pretty dangerous when he is out there. Just in this last couple of games here, in fact, he has rushed for over 100 yards. So if you're Green Bay, you're Joe Barry, you're this defense, prepare for number 24 when you're looking at the last couple of weeks here. Going back to Christmas Eve against the Arizona Cardinals, the man carried the ball for 20 times. In the games previous to that, he had 6 carries, 3 carries, 6 carries. And then the last couple of weeks, kind of exploded. And he's been averaging, well, in that Arizona game, 5.6 yards per carry. And then against Atlanta, 6.9 yards per carry. Against Atlanta, the dude ran for 124 yards rushing. So, yeah, Justin Fields, you have to prepare for him and prepare for his legs and scrambling. But do not forget about Herbert back there, number 24, because he has been on a tear in the last couple of weeks here. Okay? Number 24. Prepare for him. That's what makes this rushing attack for Chicago even more dangerous. If I'm Luke Getsy, the former Packers assistant coach, I'm looking for ways to really establish this run, utilizing both my quarterback and my running back. And when you look at how the Packers run defense has played throughout this season, you're probably feeling confident that you're going to be able to run the ball. that you're going to be able to run it and then maybe even take some shots down the field to your receiver, DJ Moore, who has racked up over 1,300 receiving yards this year. Easily the number one target. You got Cole Kmet, the tight end, in there as well. Second leading receiver on the team. But I have to imagine the Bears really want to establish the running game, both with Fields and Herbert, but also taking some shots down the field with DJ Moore. It is going to be imperative, crucial, very important for this Packers defense to play sound, fundamental football. Knowing their assignments, the whole communication issue thing that we were talking about a few weeks ago can't happen. Cannot happen in this game. Bears may be a little inconsistent on the offensive side, but they've got some weapons that can exploit this Packers defense. Some of the strengths on this Bears offense goes up against some of the weaknesses on this Packers defense. So, setting the edge, not over pursuing against Justin Fields, not over pursuing where it's a delayed handoff and then you've got the edge that's completely wide open. Winning up front, collapsing the pocket. That is going to be very important for this Packers defense. You have the confidence they can. That's where having Jair back for this game is big, going up against DJ Moore. But I also feel like that maybe, no pun intended when I say this too, maybe little chip on his shoulder, something to prove. We heard from him the other day. To me, he sounds like a guy who's humbled, who's maybe a little bit focused and such, but I expect 23 to go out there and have a game. If I'm the Packers, I go to 23 and be like, all right, you're back. We need you. We need you in a big way. You need to take out DJ Moore. You got to shut him down. This is why you are the highest paid corner in the league. Take out their top wide receiver. Give him that responsibility. That way, you can maybe focus a little bit more having a quarterback spy or keeping everything up in the front seven. Empower Jair in this game. See if he can bounce back after missing last week, after missing an opportunity to go up against Justin Jefferson. Let him utilize that going up against DJ Moore. Offensively, when in just to points per game too, because I know I missed that. Chicago 21.9. Comparing it to Green Bay, Green Bay's got 22.9. So defensively, though, this is what we've been talking about lately. Last last quarter of the season, Chicago's defense has been playing really well. And I know there's other points to that too. Well, look at the competition. Well, throughout the entire season, Chicago is about halfway in terms of rankings in total yards given up per game. All season long, they've been giving up 317.4 yards per game. Comparing it to Green Bay, who is at 344. All right. When you break it down in terms of passing attack, Chicago through the air, 233.4. Rushing, it's been hard. It has been very difficult to run the football on Chicago all season long. 84 yards per game. Number one in the league. Number one. And this is coming off of Aaron Jones the last couple of weeks here where he's rushed the ball for over 100 yards. Having Aaron Jones in this game is going to be a big boost for this running attack, especially with A.J. Dillon dealing with that thumb stinger that he suffered or thumb injury and then a stinger that he suffered in the previous game. It's going to be tough to run that football. I would expect Matt LaFleur in this offense to maybe employ a lot more misdirection, Jaden Reed in motion, some other receivers, trying to confuse this Bears defense, maybe trying to, you have that misdirection. So you have a defender for the Bears having to, can't go that way. Got to keep my eye on that guy just because he's moving that way. Boom, run the ball on the other side. That split second can make the difference between a few yards over there. I would expect that to happen in this game. I just hope that Green Bay doesn't get into a situation where they completely abandon the run. I think they have to stick with it. They have to keep it going, but they got to try to find ways to have successful runs too. Just running the football to run the football and you're only gaining a yard or you're gaining negative yards. That's when Green Bay's offense gets into real trouble, is when they have negative plays, negative running plays or penalties. So staying with the running game, but finding ways to be successful in running the football. And that starts up front again with the offensive line. Can they create those holes? Can the offense schematically come up with ways to be a little creative and maybe just to open up a little bit of a split-second hole here or there just to gain a couple more yards? That could be a difference. That could be key. I look at a guy maybe like Jaden Reed being a pivotal player on this offense because of that misdirection. And as we know it, Green Bay, not good at stopping the run, as we talked about with Chicago running the football. Green Bay, fifth worst in the league, 131.6. In terms of points given up defensively, Green Bay 21.3, Chicago 22.6. Having Christian Watson back, which he practiced again yesterday for the Packers, I think is going to be a nice boost with this. I'm not expecting him to jump in and just explode and, kind of pick up where he left off. But having his skill set, having his ability to take the top off the defense, maybe be a little bit of a decoy-ish, but having him on the field and what he can kind of draw that attention from that defense, I think opens up quite a bit in the passing game for Green Bay. It opens up things for, tight end up the seam, some crossing routes over the middle. Having him back and having really the wide receivers, we may even have Luke Musgrave back for this game. So, we're into week 18, the final game for a spot to go into the postseason here. Jordan Love might have all of his weapons available to him. He might, and you got Tucker Kraft, who's playing well, who took major advantage of, Musgrave missing time. Tucker Kraft took that and ran with it. Now you've got a two tight end scenario here that you can really expose on some defenses. You've got potentially your entire receiving core that's going to be ready to go in this game with Watson coming back, Dontavian, who missed last week's game. You throw in Jaden Reed. Romeo's there, just Mr. Consistent. Then I guess you got to throw Bo Melton into the conversation as well. Malik Heath. Aaron Jones, legs look fresh. I know he's a little bit banged up. That knee's still kind of bothering him, but he looks good. He looks fresh. Offensive line playing a little bit better, especially in the pass protection on the left side. I think it's going to be really important for Green Bay's offense to start off hot, and mentioned it yesterday, but I think it's going to be key for this game. Staying a step ahead, like in the play calls from Matt LaFleur or Love, ahead of the Bears defense and Matt Eberflus. It just felt like they were a step ahead in some of these games when their offense was just humming, when their offense looked really good, it felt like their offense was, like, or the opposing defenses were playing a little catch up. Felt like that against Minnesota, where Brian Flores was kind of scrambling. Like, okay, go do this. But Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love were one step above. Kansas City, same thing, one step above. Detroit at Thanksgiving, one step above. That sort of thing. It just felt like they were there. And I think Green Bay has to do that in this game against Chicago. Don't let Chicago's defense start to gain some momentum, start to gain some positivity, and start to gain that confidence and having success. Right? So I think Green Bay could do it. I think they could do it, but I think they got to start this game fast. I think they got to start this game fast. So, what are your keys to victory? What are your key matchups? Hit me up with a text, all right? 715-830-1912. Let's take a quick break and we'll get back to some more here. All right. What are your give me your predictions too? All right. How fired up are you for Sunday? Let's go, man. Let's go. I want to hear from you. So stopping the run, Packers defense, you got to stop the run. We got that. That's one of the key matchups in this thing. Limiting Justin Fields with his scrambling ability. Focusing on Herbert there too. Don't forgetting about Herbert, their running back number 24. Last couple weeks, he's been running the football incredibly well. So we know that. Packers offense got to stay one step ahead. Kind of making this Bears defense maybe play a little, catch up there. Packers offense got to start off hot. We know that. What else? What are some of the other key matchups in this thing? I said it yesterday. I think one of the biggest deciding factors in this game is going to be who wins the turnover battle. The Bears have been one of the best in the last few weeks here in terms of taking the ball away, takeaways, interceptions. All right, their last since week 11 or so, number 1 in takeaways, one of the best in the entire league. Let me see how they rack up. Can I break it down? Oh, my computer just froze up again. Because why not? Here we go. So in terms of interceptions right now, Bears are number 1 in the entire league. So not only have they been really good in the last few weeks here, they're number 1 in the entire league with 22 interceptions. 22 interceptions. Jordan Love has been the best since week 11 in not throwing interceptions. He's only thrown 1. That needs to continue. I really believe the team that wins this turnover battle, and you could say this happens for almost every game, and you'd be right. You look at a lot of the results in these games, more times than not, the team that wins the turnover battle is the team that wins. Once in a while, you have the outliers, but I think this is going to be incredibly important in this game. If the Packers defense could force some turnovers, if they could rattle Fields a little bit, we've seen it. We saw it in week 1. We've seen it throughout his career. He can throw some picks, can be a little turnover prone. They could rattle him, get those extra possessions for their offense, while also taking care of the football themselves on the offensive side of things. That to me is going to be incredibly important in the outcome of this game. Jordan Love needs to continue to take care of the football. And that Packers defense needs to find some ways to get some turnovers. Now, against the Vikings, the Packers defense had 13 different guys generate at least a pressure against either Nick Mullins or whoever the heck was playing quarterback back there. 13 different guys. 50% of the time, the Vikings were under pressure. Vikings quarterbacks were under pressure. Very similar to how the Packers played against Jared Goff on that Thanksgiving Day game. Now, will the Packers try to employ a similar style of defense? I don't know. That to me is going to be something, because you do have to factor in Justin Fields' ability to scramble. You do have to factor in his ability to extend the plays. If you are going to pressure that much, and if you are going to, blitz or whatever phrase you want to use out there, you have got to be very poised. You got to be disciplined in your pressures and your blitzes. Because as we said a little bit earlier at the beginning of the hour, if you over pursue, if you don't set that edge, Fields can exploit it, collapsing that pocket. I think a lot of this too, I want to see the big boys up front, the Kenny Clarks, the Slaytons, the Wyatts. I want guys generating some pressure up front and pushing the interior offensive lineman into Justin Fields' lap. I want to see that. So Justin has to maybe get off his blocks a little bit. And I think that would help guys out like Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith over there. But I think Quay Walker's got to be a big key part in this overall defense. He's got to be a key part in helping contain Justin Fields in this game, and maybe even Herbert. Number 7's got to be incredibly active around the field. And I think those safeties, too, whether it's Owens, whether it's Savage, Rudy Ford, Anthony Johnson Jr., especially when it comes into trying to slow down Cole Kmet, the Bears tight end. The defense just has to play sound, fundamental football. So when I look at some key players in this thing, we could pick a bunch. We could pick a bunch of different players and be like, that's the main dude. And all of us would probably be right because we can make a case for that. When I look at it, it's hard for me to just pick one because I think it's got to be a total team effort in this thing. You know, I mentioned a couple of them. I think, you know, you've got to empower Jair. You've got to say, all right, you were out last week. You missed out on Jefferson this year. Go take some of that frustration out and use that and shut down DJ Moore so we can utilize the other 10 guys on this defense. Just mentioned Quay Walker. I think those defensive linemen are going to be big. Edge rushers are going to be big in terms of just, you know, not allowing or not over pursuing and not setting the edge. Offensively, Jordan Love taking care of the football. Can Aaron Jones get going in this game? Are they going to be able to run the football? There's so many key players that I don't think I could just narrow it down to just a couple in this one because I think it's going to have to be a team effort. Now, it almost sounds like I'm saying this is going to be an insurmountable task at hand for Green Bay, and it's not. It's not. It's just this is you got your division rival who's playing some good football right now, who are probably a little bit more motivated coming into Lambeau to stop the Packers from going into the postseason. They remember week 1. They were, maybe it was more to the fans, but, you know, hey, finally, we don't have to deal with Rodgers anymore. And then week 1, what do? Jordan Love goes in there and beats him. Matt LaFleur is undefeated, 9-0 against him. You got their former quarterback Rodgers saying this is the Bears' Super Bowl. Maybe it is. So you got an incredibly motivated Chicago team coming into town. Lambeau Field, not to diss or anything, but that's not going to really intimidate the Bears initially. That's why if you're going to the game, I'll be going to the game, and hopefully I'll have my voice. If you're a Packers fan, you got to get loud. You got to make that a home field advantage over there, all right? You got to get loud. You got to get really loud when that Bears offense is out there. No wave when the Packers are on offense. Please, for the love of all that is great, no wave when that Packers offense is out there. But somehow you got to make that a home field advantage at Lambeau. Make things incredibly difficult on Justin Fields in that offense. Make it very hard. Utilize any advantage that you can. All right? Joe Barry, end your Packers tenure with a fantastic performance and helping get your team into the postseason. All right? I don't think a couple games are going to save his job, but end it on a good note whenever that's going to be. Get your defense prepared. Get a good game plan. Call a great game. Let's end this whole thing on a good note by getting a spot into the postseason. You got some guys back. Let's end this on a good thing. Joe Barry, by the way, yesterday did speak a little bit with the media and talking about Jair. He said post-suspension role. Let's talk about Jair's post-suspension role because there's been some talk about out there, like, is Jair going to be a starter in this game? And to me, he better be. Okay, I get it. I understand, maybe the narrative or the talking point or, how well the Allentines have been playing. But I mean, come on. Jair better be a starter in this game. Joe Barry said, one thing I will say is that Ja's been phenomenal this week. He really has. It's still Jair Alexander. It's great to have him here and with us and back on the fold. He has been really great this week. I feel like you're going to get a very focused and motivated Jair Alexander. Use that. Utilize it. That injury report may look long for Green Bay, but don't let that necessarily deter you from saying, man, they're going to be shorthanded. But you're going to have Musgrave back. It sounds like Matt LaFleur said. I'd say it's realistic, yes. Christian Watson's probably going to be back. Devondre Campbell's going to be back. Maybe the one concern is Elton Jenkins. LaFleur said it's an ankle injury for Elton Jenkins. Said there is concern about anyone who didn't practice 2 days in a row. Also, that's Preston Smith and A.J. Dillon. So today's practice report is going to be pretty important. Now, those guys are also veterans. I would say those guys are also veterans. And, entering the final week, if there's some guys out there that can probably afford to lose some practice time and still be ready for a game, it's probably guys like Elton Jenkins, A.J. Dillon, and Preston Smith. I feel like Preston's going to be out there regardless. I mean, these guys are going to push to play. If you're not pushing to play, then what the heck are you doing? This is what it's all about. All right. I want some enthusiasm from y'all, okay? Let's do this, baby. Let's do it. Living a dream, Jeff. Good morning, Dan. Packers offense just has to do what they've been doing. Offensive line, really good in the passing game for the defense. Barry needs a scheme like last weekend. Make Fields throw the ball, stop their run, and no worries. Go, Pack, go. Packers win by 17. Living a dream, Jeff. Going with a 17-point victory for the Pack. All right. I hope you're right, man. I feel like if Green Bay gets to 30, they got this. I feel like if they get to 30 points, they've got the W. Rest of you, keep her going here. Okay. Hit me up with some more texts. We'll get to them throughout the morning here. All right. So coming up next hour, we'll catch up with Dr. Crow for a little inside the training room segments. Brought to you by Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Brandon Berg will also be hopping on. We're going to be making some picks, which our picks too is going to determine who we think is going to make the postseason here. Wild card weekend starting next week. Also, national championship on Monday. So we've got a loaded pick segment coming up at about 8:45 this morning. We'll also do a little recap on some of the recap and preview some of the local stuff that's going around here. So Brandon will do that for us in the 7 o'clock hour as well. Bucks, I know that they're probably second in the order, in the pecking order right now for a lot of people, but Bucks picking up a win last night against the Spurs. Victor Wembanyama going up against the Greek Freak. So Bucks ending their 2-game skid with that W. They're going up against the Houston Rockets tomorrow. So we'll throw some hoops chat, potentially throw some hoops chat in there as well. But I'm going to call you out, Packers fans. I want a little more enthusiasm. All right, I want to go Pack go text or something like that. Okay, you got to hit me up. G-man, where are you, man? All right, we need some enthusiasm going on here on this Football Friday. Not even a C-bomb good morning or anything like that. Let's go. All right. Kind of calling you out here this morning. I want to hear from you. Hit me up with those text tweets and Facebook posts, okay? Let's get this thing going. We're final week of the season here with a spot in the postseason on the line, going up against the Bears. All right. Do you want to hear Bears trash talk all off season long? I don't think so. All right. Let's represent Western, Northwestern Wisconsin here right now. Okay. Let's get a little pumped up. Maybe the adrenaline's kicked in a little too early for me for Sunday, but man, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to head over to Lambeau and get this thing in. Might not have a voice on Monday. Just say. Might not have a voice. Hopefully Justice will be able to join us so he can kind of carry things that morning. But don't forget, you can send me your predictions as well for this game. Key matchups, keys to victory, all that good stuff. All right. Got some picks coming in here right now. Looks like majority of you are going with the Packers. Got some 27-17. We got a 24-20. We got a 17-10. We got a 10-3. Was it 10-3 in that 2011 winning in? I can't remember. I was at there, but I can't remember. Don't know if that's a shout out to a little throwback action there or not. But all right, I can dig it. Low scoring affair. I just remember sitting in that game and the anxiety was really building with that low scoring thing. Ooh, yeah. We got a 17-13 win and 14-10 prediction on there as well. All right, got a couple minutes left. Good morning, Morgs.
Hey, good morning. Now, do you and the household put up Christmas decorations?
Yes.
So where are you at on them? Are they down already? Are they up? When do they come down?
New Year's.
Okay, so you do let them up a little bit after Christmas. Okay, because technically today's supposed to be the official last day, like of the 12 days of Christmas to let the tree stand and stuff. Do you know anybody that stretches way beyond it?
Not really, no.
Because and everybody calls me a Grinch, but like I'm pretty much Christmas night or the next day.
Well, you don't do it on Christmas
Coming
night.
down.
No.
Yeah.
No.
You're picking stuff up anyway. There's bags of wrapping paper.
No.
Start pulling it down.
You are a Grinch then.
Not a Grinch. Just get it done and out of the way.
But you have all Christmas Day doing that stuff. You shouldn't spend the night taking everything down.
I know some people that are trying to like push into the let's just repurpose the tree trend. Like make it a Valentine's tree day in January or in February and that kind of thing. Did you get behind that at all?
No.
Trees come down.
That's the one thing I don't bums me out about Christmas is that the finality of it. It's like so many people and stores and that just like, all right, we're done.
Oh, absolutely. It's done. You move on, you forget about it. Yeah, you're not
depressing.
Going back and trying to get together again like that.
It's depressing.
That is a hard breakup with Christmas. But don't you think, this is my theory, why everybody starts it so early? Because you crave the feeling, the excitement, the holiday rush. You know, little kids especially get excited for it, which is why we've started it basically in August. So we try to recreate that early because once it's over, everyone's like, I'm washing my hands of Christmas. I'm done. I'm over it.
Yeah.
But isn't it always just supposed to be crammed between Thanksgiving and Christmas and then just really enjoy the crap out of it during that time?
Yeah.
Instead of trying to stretch it out on the front end so long?
It's kind of like when your favorite team season ends on just like that.
Yeah, it is. Especially on like a bad sour note.
Yeah.
You can't really get over it. It's hard to watch. I see you didn't doubled up in Green Bay today. You feeling good about the Bears game?
I'm hoping I'll be there. So I'm hoping.
This is a one in the flesh for you? Who's going?
Who's going?
Yeah.
With me?
Yeah.
Bunch of people.
You got a whole group?
Hopefully about 80,000 Packers fans.
Oh, yeah. You're going to find some camaraderie in the stands?
I don't want to see any blue and orange.
So how are you feeling about it in the guts? Make a call. I know you don't do predictions,
I've been listening to a little journey.
You can keep believing?
No. Love will find you.
Oh, okay.
A little bit
You're not going so stereotypical.
No.
Okay.
No, exactly.
Let's see if love finds you.
to the 715newsroom.com.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save nearly $750 on average. Call or click today and find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance.
Legendary.
Welcome to the Dan Kasper Show.
What time is it? Dan, let me tell you now. I don't know how, but the whole world gonna know my name. Just wait and see. They gonna talk about me. Things ain't never gonna be the same.
This is the Dan Kasper Show.
Make way for me. Make way for me. You know I'm gonna be legendary. Make way for me.
Second hour kicking off on this Football Friday, one of the last few Football Fridays, if you think about it, because we got the postseason starting next week and such, so about a month left of a little Football Friday here. We'll get back to some more Packers-Bears preview coming up a little bit later on, but send me your predictions on that Shoe Doctors Bullpen texting line, 715-830-1912. We'll catch up with Brandon Berg as well. Big win last night for McDonald girls basketball over Fall Creek. So we'll talk about that and more. That's going on in the area. We got Cream of the Crop and the local spotlight, the Carpet City Flooring Center local spotlights coming at you as well. But we begin this hour, as we usually do every Friday, a little inside the training room.
Paging Dr. Crow. Breaking down the latest in sports injuries. It's time for Inside the Training Room with Dr. Crow.
You better call me a doctor.
On the Dan Kasper Show.
Somebody give me a doctor.
Dr. Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine joining us. First of all, I know it's a few days later. I'm probably violating a lot of rules, but Happy New Year, Austin, over there too.
You as well.
Hey, I saved this from New Year's Eve. I screenshot this on Twitter because I wanted to ask you this. So Ian Rappaport had tweeted this. Tyler Smith, he's a guard for the Cowboys. Ian had tweeted out he finally completely tore the plantar fascia in his foot, which sounds bad, but is actually good. Is that true? Is that actually good that he, quote, finally tore his plantar fascia in his foot?
That is actually, yes. Which is kind of counterintuitive, right? You'd think that anytime you tear a structure it'd be bad, but people who have severe plantar fasciitis, which is what he was undoubtedly suffering from, have a lot of pain in the foot. Anyone who's had it, I mean, it sounds like such a small thing, but it's like every step hurts, especially early in the morning and after a lot of activity. So when it's really symptomatic, it can be quite debilitating. So it's very inflamed. Interestingly, the plantar fascia isn't a necessary structure for stability in the foot. So when it does rupture, it's not like the foot just falls apart. So it actually relieves the pain because then the stress on that fascia is now relieved. So in fact, recalcitrant cases, the way they treat it is going in and cutting it. So this is kind of like doing it yourself. So it is one of the few circumstances where that can be beneficial.
Could he or could anybody at that point play with a torn plantar fasciitis?
Well, sometimes there's a big uptick in pain right off the bat after the rupture. So occasionally you do need to rest it for a little bit prior to getting back to activities, but usually they're able to get back fairly quickly. So I'm not sure if he's going to miss any time, but a lot of times it feels better pretty quickly and they're able to go.
Is there any other like injury? And this might be kind of a weird question, but like where it's almost better to tear something like that for maybe pain relief or something like that you know off the top of your head?
The one other notable one is the long head of the biceps and the shoulder. Where we'll get, now that's usually in older patients who have, degenerative changes to the tendon, but a lot of times they'll come in and they'll say, I was using my arm, I felt a pop and the biceps tore. Now it's an important distinction. It's the top end of it or the shoulder portion. The long head ruptures and they'll get what's called the Popeye deformity. So the muscle kind of balls up and then it'll hurt for a week and then they'll say, my shoulder hasn't felt this good in years. And that's because it was basically a bad degenerative tendon in the shoulder. Once it rips, there's no longer tension on it and they feel better. And because the biceps has a separate insertion up top, it still functions. So that's another example where you can actually take a step forward with that rupture of a tendon, which again is very counterintuitive, but it can be. Now, unfortunately, basically every other example of a ruptured tendon results in significant dysfunction. So it's a rare circumstance where it's beneficial, but those are probably the two ones that come to mind.
Interesting. Jaden Reed, Packers wide receiver, left the game on Sunday night halfway through with a chest injury. They said he re-aggravated his chest injury, and it's something he's been dealing with for the last few weeks, but he's practicing again this week. Any idea what potentially could be going on with a chest injury where he's still practicing, but then he's playing in games and then maybe misses a couple quarters? I don't know. Maybe the score at that time kind of helped determine whether he was going to come back or not. Is it bruise or anything else potentially going on?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing that comes to mind is ribs, but they'll usually designate those as rib injuries specifically. So it could be something along those lines. Now, as the ribs come over to the front of the chest, they join with the sternum. And so you can get inflammation or irritation where your ribs and sternum come together. And so people can get inflammation or costochondritis in those areas. So it could be something along those lines. But I know, the imaging was negative. They didn't see any fractures. So my assumption is he took a hit. They were worried about either sternal or a rib injury. That was negative for a fracture, but there's probably a contusion or bruise there. And resulted in some persistent inflammation. So that would be my suspicion, because there's really not a lot of other things that you're really going to be worried about, unless, of course, you're talking about muscle. Now, occasionally they will designate pec injuries, but it doesn't sound like that's the case here. Often, again, a pec injury, if it's a tendon where it avulses, then it's going to be surgical if it's a strain. But they'll usually designate that as a pec injury. So my suspicion is rib/sternal injury. Should bounce back, not long term, but can be, of course, painful and somewhat debilitating depending on the severity in the short term.
And then AJ Dillon apparently suffered a stinger in that game, but he also hasn't been practicing this week. I know he's been dealing with a thumb injury as well, but could a stinger injury in the neck affect maybe his playing status for this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, those are really highly variable in their severity. I mean, a lot of them are quite mild. So you'll see, and we see this all the way into youth sports. They'll take a hit. Usually, it's where the neck gets driven, away from the shoulder, and the shoulder goes down. And basically, it's a traction injury. So they basically pull on the nerves that run down there. We call it the brachial plexus. And then they'll get this, this sharp searing pain. I don't know if you ever had one. Anyone who has, know it's not fun. And in a more severe case, I mean, there's times where it's like a limp noodle, like the arm doesn't move. It can be really quite scary, but it usually rebounds really quickly. In the more mild cases, it goes away in seconds, maybe a couple minutes. But there are more significant ones where it will linger on. And really what we usually monitor is the strength. So as long as the athlete has full strength, they're able to go back and safely participate. But if there's any residual weakness from the nerve being irritated, we'll keep them on. That's pretty atypical. So my guess is they're just being overly cautious, trying to let it calm down, and he'll play. But occasionally you will get a little persistent weakness or pain in the shoulder that would make you want to hold off. But that's pretty rare, frankly.
He's Dr. Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, for our Inside the Training Room. Christian Watson sounds like he's going to be, or at least it sounds like he's going to give it a go on Sunday. But the other day, I believe it was Matt LaFleur said that that's going to be one of the things that they really look at in this offseason is his hamstring issues, and they're going to try to figure out, what's going on here and all that sort of stuff. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but we've talked a lot about hamstring injuries, soft tissue injuries. Is there really anything they can look at the offseason to see? Is it maybe a changing of training, or is there anything really they can figure out what's going on with his hamstring injuries?
Yeah, no, if they do, I mean, that'll solve one of the great mysteries of orthopedics is like why people get these that don't go away. So unfortunately, I don't see that. Now, are there things they can do? Absolutely. But I would imagine they've already been done. I mean, he's not like a college player that's just coming to the pros and this is the first time that he's worked with the training staff here. So, but things that you can do, certainly flexibility, certainly specific weight training with eccentric loading. Those are things that you can do to help decrease the risk of it. But I would be shocked if he isn't doing that already. But, a lot of these athletes will do their own workouts. Maybe the team's going to say, look, you're now coming in and working out with our staff and doing it our way. That's a possibility. But, unfortunately, again, we've kind of beat this horse dead through the years, but I'll say it again, with these injuries, muscle and these muscle tendinous injuries, they heal with scars. So there's going to be some residual scar there. And if it's a substantial injury, which clearly it's been given how long it's been in the recurrence, that can create a scenario where you're prone to re-injury. And so unfortunately, sometimes people have a hamstring or a groin or a calf, whatever muscle we're talking about, that is injured, and it's just unfortunately prone to re-injury. But things you can do, again, like I mentioned, specific stretching, strengthening are ways to try decrease or mitigate that. But yeah, I unfortunately, I don't think they're going to have a magical cure out there, but it'd be great if they did.
Yeah, whoever finds that out, like you said, I would have to imagine everybody's going to try to copy that,
Yep.
that program or whatever. So,
Absolutely,
man, oh
they'll have
man,
to name it after someone famous and go from there.
It-
Patent it.
yeah, exactly. Kirk Cousins, we saw him on Sunday, but this was a couple weeks ago where his wife said that if the Vikings make the postseason and they make the Super Bowl, they're hopeful that he would be able to play in that Super Bowl. Does that?
Oh man! Don't be saying stuff like that to me.
Would that fit the timeline for Kirk Cousins though, considering he didn't have that magical surgery that Aaron Rodgers apparently had too?
Yeah, the magical surgery. Yeah, I mean, I don't believe so. I just don't see it happen. Well, first off, I mean, as diehard a fan as I am, we're not making. I hope we don't even make the playoffs. On a side note, but anyway, the Super Bowl, that's laughable. I just don't see it happening. I mean, I think just like Rodgers. I mean, at the end of the day, you can put all sorts of fancy hardware, whatever. At the end of the day, you need those two ends of the Achilles tendon to grow back together, and we just have not found a way to accelerate the biological process with any significant difference. So for him to come back and play, I would think it would be very high risk, just like it would have been for Aaron Rodgers. So people can say that, and I think the odds of the Vikings making the Super Bowl is astronomically small. So I think they're safe to say whatever they want because that's not going to happen. So I just at the end of the day, you re-injure that, and it's such a big deal. I think. I realize he's getting a little later in his career, but I don't think he's ready to hang it up yet. But if he re-injured it, that just like Rodgers, that'd be such a blow that I think it would be foolish for either of those guys to try to return on this crazy accelerated program. So to me, the answer is no.
So let me ask you a final question here, since you mentioned you are a Vikings fan, and a lot of talk about Kirk Cousins, and I think I heard on the telecast too that they were talking about Kirk Cousins' recovery and timeline, and next up they're hoping to do some record videos of him working out for other teams, to kind of take a look at how he's doing in his recovery process. With his age, where the type of injury, do you want him back in Minnesota? Do you think he could still play at a high level with that injury recovery?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, I do. I mean, I think his ability to recover. He's never been a real mobile quarterback. I mean, we all know that. That's not where his strength lies. So I think he will bounce back really close to where he was pre-injury. Now he is getting older, and we all know that Father Time is undefeated, so he's going to catch up eventually. But I mean, Kirk, I'm biased, but Kirk, I felt like playing was at an MVP level before his injury. I mean, he was playing really well. So do I think he's going to be back to that? I do. I mean, the question really becomes for us is managing our salary cap. So
yeah.
We have this receiver who's going to ask for a lot of money, and are we going to be able to afford that and a good quarterback? I think at the end of the day, we have to, though, to some degree, because I don't imagine JJ is going to want to come back to a rebuild, right? I don't. So I don't know. It's a great question. Do I think that Kirk will come back and play at a high level? Absolutely. I think if he comes back at a reasonable number, the Vikings probably should re-sign him. I think we still need to plan for the future as well. So I don't know if that's going to be another draft. Hall certainly didn't look great against you guys in the first half. It was. But it's easy to judge guys, and we live in a world where people make snap judgments and say, hey, this guy's clearly not going to pan out. And I think earlier in the season, I think a lot of Packers fans were ready to move on from Love, and all of a sudden he's starting to play better, and people are like, I knew he was going to be great. And I'm like, that's not what you guys were saying a couple weeks ago, right? So It's just the nature of things that people want to see immediate success. And you can look back at the history of quarterbacks that have succeeded that really struggled early on. It is a very, very hard thing to do to be an NFL quarterback, physically and mentally. And so point being, I don't think Hall's the answer, but I'm not saying he's not either, but we need to plan for that. But to answer the question explicitly, I would say, yes, I think we can and should go after Kirk, but obviously you got to manage how you're going to sign JJ as well. So
Well said. Well said. All right. Before I let you go, Michigan or Washington, who you picking Monday?
I mean, I was a Texas fan, so I was pulling for them,
Yeah.
but I think Michigan really looks like they're playing well. I mean, they should have beat Alabama by more than they did. I think they look like the better team. To me, the winner of that game, the Michigan-Bama game, was likely going to be the victor. And I think the line's like 4 points, 4.5 points is what they're favoring Michigan. So Vegas is pretty smart at what they do. So I think Michigan's going to win. The real question is it going to get vacated right after the season or not? But,
exactly.
Time will tell about that.
He's Dr. Crow inside the trading room. Dude, appreciate it as always, buddy. Love chatting with you. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll catch up again next time. Okay, bud?
Sounds great. Take care.
You got it. There you go. Dr. Austin Crow, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Quick break. We'll have Brandon up here. Can you hear? Can you hear Brandon? Earth to Brandon. Can you hear in there, Mike? No. Okay. But we'll get him. Got a little more enthusiasm coming from some Packers fans. Been kind of quiet this morning, but your mom coming through.
Oh, you knew that. You
Brandon,
can always
so-
depend on her for a little juice.
Yep. Good morning. I think just take care of business, both sides of the ball, no turnovers, create turnovers, and I expect you'll have that victory scotch in the trunk of the car. Go, Pack, go. By the way, Pack by 10, I want to hear you cheering. Well, hopefully I'll have a voice even before then. So, again, I apologize. My voice is kind of coming in and out. Might need a little mustard from Ray's place to
There you go.
clear the
There you go.
sinuses a little bit there. We got C-Bomb with a pick 27-20. Green Bay, let's go. We've got Dave. Dave saying, since you've asked, enjoy the game this weekend. Bring back a victory. Hopefully so. We got some more picks there. 17-10, 24-7. All Green Bay so far. Somebody's got to pick the Bears just to keep the bad juju away. Brandon, you might have to do that in our pick segment coming up. Which, by the way, you know what we're going to do after our picks? So we're going to have a little extended one.
Okay.
It's a tradition that we, I think, started last year. After we make our picks, who gets that vaunted Saturday wild card?
I already know
matchup?
who I'm going with.
Do you?
I
All
do.
right.
I have an idea.
All right. So
yes, we have to. We love us some Saturday afternoon wild card game here.
Yep, exactly. So
who gets the first one?
Yep. So we're going to do that as part of our picks. So we'll have a loaded pick because we got national championship on Monday too, which I always feel like kind of flies under the radar.
It does, especially with the way the playoffs are. I mean, it's a week. Like there's always that lead up to the Final Four, to those semifinals, in part because that was kind of the start of it. Now, obviously, next year the 12 teams is a little different, but and then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, those teams play again in a week. Like you forget it's such a quick turnaround.
And because it used to, for the longest time, also be the Monday after the wild card round for the NFL.
Right. But with that moving a week later, obviously they don't want to carry this too far into January.
Right. And then now it's the final week of the regular season, but Monday is, I'd say, a Black Monday for a lot of NFL coaches. Or even, sometimes on Sunday right away too. So
some coaches learn right after the game.
Yep, exactly. So before we get back to football talk, though, I want to catch up on some of the local stuff here because one big hoops game from last night was McDonald and Fall Creek. Were both undefeated going into
No,
that
they were
matchup?
both ranked. But,
both ranked. That's what it was.
Fall Creek had a couple early losses, but had won 8 in a row coming into last night. And McDonald secured a 64-44 win to stay at there. They stayed undefeated, but also to keep, to take over, I should say, the top spot all alone in the Western Clover Belt. So that was a big game to start the new year for the Max and the Cricket. So I mean, obviously goes without saying, a big win for McDonald, a game that was really driven by their defense. They scored the first 13 points of the game, and that everything for McDonald starts with this defense. I mean, they're athletic. They like to get out and run, and they succeed in forcing turnovers and just making other teams kind of feel uncomfortable. Because they've got that length, they've got the athleticism. At this point, so many of them have the experience within the system. They can just kind of go and do it, and it's tough for a lot of teams to handle because it forces you to play at a quick tempo. Maybe about a half speed or one click more than you're comfortable at. So that's when a lot of mistakes can happen.
Right. So staying with basketball, is this where now it's like that second half, because we're talking about with college where Big Ten started, WIAC started conference play.
Yeah.
Is it similar to that with high school?
Year, and actually last night, coach Don Cooper had said that he looks at the season in quarters.
Okay.
And he's told his team before last night's game, you're starting the third quarter right now. And even though there's no longer quarters in high school basketball, it's halves.
Right.
That's a good way to think about it because you get that once you get into the new year. You don't have any more of those kind of start and stops. You don't have, play 2 games and then it's Thanksgiving and then play 7 games and then it's Christmas. Like now, no pun intended, kind of the full court press is on and all these teams and all the sports really are just, we're kind of pushing forward till February because that's really the big action month. You've got postseason either starting for most school or most sports or by the end of February, maybe for boys basketball, is when it gets going. So it's right around the corner. Like that's always the thing about the winter is it's a long season, but it's kind of deceptive because it's broken up a little bit.
What's the BRC girls look like right now?
Well, right before Christmas, Menominee picked up a big win over Hudson. I think we talked about it at that time. And they're still unbeaten. That's that's a Menominee team that enters the new year kind of.
Running a lot of momentum.
At the top of the mountain, so to speak, there. But they're going to have to, play some really good teams yet. Again, they're going to have to play Hudson again. They're going to have to play Eau Claire Memorial again. So that's, I think they're at the top right now. They're state ranked, but I mean, there's still a lot to be decided there. A game up on Memorial in the girls' standings. In the Dunn St. Croix, we had Elk Mound still unbeaten.
Okay.
They had a doozy of a game over Christmas against Altoona, a game that went down to it. Altoona, having a good go of it so far in the middle border for Coach Michelle Poplinski. So, that's kind of what you're looking at. Girls basketball wise, boys basketball wise in the Western Clover Belt. A big one tonight for Bloomer, who leads the Western Clover Belt, going to Fall Creek, and Fall Creek's getting back a very important player for them, Bo Volrath, who was the two-time Western Clover Belt Player of the Year. Was injured during football. He's back now. He's going to probably be on a bit of a minutes restriction early on, but that's a big piece for them to get back. So that'll be a good one for both those teams coming out of the new year. In the Big Rivers, you've got Eau Claire Memorial up top. They suffered a loss right before Christmas at Stevens Point, but they're still unbeaten in conference play. So they've got tonight they go to Menominee, take on Menominee, but otherwise you've got River Falls up there. They're state ranked. They're a half game back of Memorial. Rice Lake's gotten off to a solid start. I mean, they had to kind of start their season a little bit later because so many of those guys play football. So one season kind of flowed into another. So I think actually their first game they had to actually postpone just because they were you're not going to play a basketball game 3 days or 4 days after you win a football title.
Right.
Like
those
guys are still in kind of oh yeah, we're playing a different sport now mode. But that's a big one. Obviously. There for them in the Dunn St. Croix, you've got Durand, Arkansas, who actually picked up a non-conference win Tuesday over Stanley Boyd, who's another prime contender in the Western Clover Belt as well. Durand and Durand, Arkansas, and Spring Valley. Right now, they're kind of the top of the heap as far as the Dunn St. Croix goes, with Elk Mountain kind of hot on the heels there. But some of these conferences you're going to see a lot of conference games being played because, some conferences didn't play a ton of games before the break. Others did. Like you've got, just for example, you've got I think the Western Clover Belt for girls has 6 games under their belt, but yet the Dunn St. Croix for boys, some teams only have a few.
Okay.
So, that's just kind of how the schedule works. Different teams kind of, maneuver their schedules different ways. So yeah, we're really, we go now. I mean, that's the best way to put it. We go now. I mean, boys hockey, Chi High stayed unbeaten in Big Rivers play last night with a big win over in New Richmond. And right now the Cardinals, I think, are ranked second in the state in Division I, but they get a big one looming with Eau Claire Memorial.
And
those I say Memorial. I mean,
for hockey, they just won their seventh.
Yeah, they're picking it up. I mean, they've got a win over Green Bay Notre Dame, which defending state champ. I mean that. If you've been around here for any length of time, you know that when Chippewa Falls plays Eau Claire Memorial and boys hockey, it's always a big deal.
Yeah, and
that one's at Chippewa Ice Arena next Tuesday, and that's going to be a big deal.
Absolutely, yeah, because both of them picked up wins last night. Memorial with that 7th win, and then Chi High, I saw still would that be for first place, or does Chi High still have a lead?
I'm gonna have to double check because I know Memorial's up there, but I don't know if they have one conference loss or two.
Okay.
So I don't know if it would move them into a tie, but either way, if Memorial grabbed a win there, obviously that opens things up. Because right now, and Chippewa doesn't have a loss in conference play, and you kind of wait until you get that first conference loss before things kind of change a little bit.
Right. Exactly. So yep, we got hockey still going on. Women's or girls hockey. Kind of, near
the Chippewa Falls, Menominee, Eau Claire. Last week, Eau Claire area hosted the Wisconsin Prep Hockey Girls Holiday Classic.
Okay.
Eau Claire area made the championship game in that one. And that was, I was there for the last day of that. That would have been last Thursday. And that was it's a fun event. Obviously, Hobbs is going to be a great event to host. A great venue to host something like that.
Right.
And the best thing, from what I could tell, is they stayed on schedule pretty well, which is always a big thing for those holiday tournaments. But looking at the Big Rivers for girls hockey, it's St. Croix Valley at the top. They're staying ranked. I mean, that's a program that's always good. Like it's never a surprise. They picked up a win earlier this week over Eau Claire area, 7-1. They face Chippewa Falls Menominee coming up here on Tuesday, but you've got them up front. You've got Chippewa Falls Menominee, who's actually in second. So that game Tuesday is going to be a battle of the top 2 teams in the conference.
Okay.
Hudson's still in contention there. They're 2-2. You've got, otherwise you got Western Wisconsin, Eau Claire area kind of looking to make up the difference. But I think we'll talk about this a little more once we get to the playoffs. I think the thing, once you get to the playoffs, especially in girls hockey, with the teams in this area, is it's so wide open. We've seen that the last few years that, go back a couple of years when Chippewa Falls Menominee won state, they were not necessarily a super high seed. It's just kind of a matter of, teams get hot at the right time. You got a good goalie in goal. They kind of they get hot and suddenly they're, turning away a bunch of shots. Like hockey is one of those sports where you can get some teams that are maybe a little under the radar that can make a run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How's wrestling look like for your schedule coming up here?
It picks up. I mean,
Yeah.
this is you're starting to get to the point now. Tomorrow, Cadet hosts its annual invite, so you got a lot of smaller school teams there for that. Next weekend, you've got the Chai invite. You've got some good teams there as well from all around the state. Coming off last week, you had a couple big events around the state: the Northern Badger Wrestling Classic in River Falls, the Bi-State Classic down in La Crosse. It's it's interesting because like the holiday week has really become like a big sports week, and that wasn't always the case.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time where that week was pretty light as far as like scheduling for events go. I remember when I was in high school, play basketball. We don't really play over that. It was just a week of kind of practice.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that that's becoming that. You're getting these different events going on because I think it's really important it doesn't matter the sport really, but all of these different schools and teams, that gives you a chance to kind of maybe go a little bit further away. If you're going to a tournament or
right.
if you're going to just like a 1-day thing, you don't necessarily have to worry so much about the travel effects because it's not like you're traveling somewhere on like a Thursday night and you have a school Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I know last weekend, Chippewa Falls McDonald boys swimming went up to Superior, and that's a trip they'd probably make anyway. But it's nice when you can make that on like a Saturday as opposed to a Thursday night.
Right.
Or if you're going, 2-3 hours away for a basketball tournament or a wrestling tournament, it just kind of opens up opportunity, and I think that's always a big thing,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're getting it around that midway point of the year.
Right. Okay. Good stuff there, Brandon.
Kind of an abrupt ending, but you're like, okay.
Yeah. Well, no, because I was gonna get finally loaded up here. Blue Golds, because we got a big action, big weekend of Blue Gold stuff coming up here, including some hoops. With both men's and women's team taking on Whitewater. Women's basketball team, Whitewater, is ranked number 4 on the men's side. Whitewater is ranked number 11. So big weekend of hoops action for both the Blue Gold teams there. I know Stout's ranked over there too. So, and they just had a big win over Point, who was ranked too, the women's team there too. So, but for all the upcoming Blue Gold schedules, just head to bluegolds.com. Their new website's got the entire schedule of events up there, and you can check out the latest episode of the Rollin' with the Golds podcast that was dropped yesterday, where we chatted with head swimming and diving coach Annie Ryder. So you can check that out wherever you listen to your podcasts or at sportstalk1051.com. Let's take a quick break here. Get back to some more football talk. Just saw this. Didn't really think of this, but we might have to put it in our picks and predicts. Is this Bill Belichick's last game as Patriots head coach?
Ooh.
That kind of was like, oh, yeah, I guess I never really thought of that at that point. So we'll put that in our picks and predicts segments coming up at about 8:40. We're going to start a little bit early this morning. So quick break. We'll finish up the second hour. We got the Carpet City Flooring Center local spotlight coming up, plus cream of the crop just past 8 o'clock. Stick around. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Bloomer Tony's going. Morning, DK. Anders is going to win the game on a last-second 50-plus yarder, doinked off the right upright and through pack win 24-23. I don't want to have a heart attack like that at that game. I don't want that to happen.
I appreciate that level of specificness when it comes to predictions.
Mm-hmm. I will be the negative Nancy in the stand saying he's going to miss it. And, yeah.
What you call a negative Nancy, I just say what the average Viking fan feels every time their kicker lines up for a field goal.
Oh, man. So, before we get into it, want to do the Carpet City Florence Center local spotlights?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and it was actually someone I did not mention, but has had a big last few weeks. We're going to go with Cadet Junior Braden Schneider. Last week scored in 2 games at the Elmwood Plum City Boys Basketball Holiday Tournament, scored 36 and 42 points.
Wow.
Came back on Tuesday in a win over Leva Strum and scored 27 points. His last 4 games, he's averaging more than 30 points a game. Kind of, really taking a big step forward this year for the Hornets. After last year, actually at the same tournament I just mentioned, he actually broke his ankle.
Oh, Jesus.
So he was out. So he got off to a solid start, but broke his ankle, was out the rest of the year. Came back this year going into that tournament and decided I'm just going to go and average 39 points in these 2 games and then come back and get 27 points early this week in a win. Tonight cannot plays at Eau Claire Regis to jump back into Western Clover Belt play, but
wow.
He's been playing at a really high level here. Just kind of getting more aggressive, just kind of getting that thing in you to go, to just be really aggressive going to the basket. That's something I think a lot of players. You kind of learn it at some point. Like you got to get to the basket, and he doesn't shy away from contact. Got to get into the free throw line an awful lot for that team, and that's gonna be an interesting team to watch here these last 6-7 weeks.
Absolutely. I don't know if I'm sure you saw this the other day, or yesterday. And remember when the NFL Players Association did their rankings of like facilities?
Yeah,
and
the
teams?
Vikings were number 1.
Yeah, that stuff.
They won something.
This is really interesting, I thought. So they also now they asked over 1,700 players to rate the coordinators they play for on a scale of 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And so they listed their top 5 offensive coordinators. Frank Smith from the Dolphins, number 2, Thomas Brown. This one I kind of chuckled at a little bit. I'm sorry, but given history, Brian Schottenheimer was number 3 for the Cowboys over there. Brian Callahan and then Kellen Moore for the Chargers. And they did the defensive coordinators. Aaron Glenn from the Lions was number 1. Steve Wilkes, number 2 from the 49ers. Dan Quinn, your Brian Flores, and then Raheem Morris. Special teams coordinator, John Fossil, Cowboys. Chris Tabor, who's the interim head coach with the Panthers right now. Matt Daniels, your Vikings one. Dave Phipp from the Lions, and Darren Rizzi from the Saints. Don't know if that will have an effect on the hiring circles, but you kind of wonder if that will a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing there too is that I think gives other teams an idea of what their own players think of them. Because look, you can be anonymous here. Like now, I think that was a big thing. They wanted to give the players anonymity so you can speak freely. If you're not a fan of your coordinator, you can say it without having to worry about any sort of reprisal. So
and maybe it gives current head coaches, who maybe employ some of the guys who didn't make the top 5. Like I did see somebody, I can't remember who it was. I think it was a former player said, now see the bottom 5.
And that's it. They're never going to release that because they're not going to poo-poo on, the coaches people don't think highly of, but I would love to see that.
I would too, because I'll just use this as an example. Like Rich Bisaccia did not make top 5.
Yeah.
But you hear positive stuff from but he didn't make top 5.
Yeah.
Does that change it? I don't know if it changes anything. And surprisingly, Joe Barry did not make the top 5 for top defensive.
Did they do this before or after last Sunday? Must have been before.
Must have been before.
Because he would be way up there.
Right. So no, I thought I was like, okay, will that change some of the stuff or maybe improve stocks? Or I don't know. I'd be curious to know. And I don't know if they would. Like, do they release the whole list privately to other teams?
I don't know. Like if like you're a team that's like hiring, like maybe I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah. JC Treader said that The ratings were qualitative and all-encompassing in terms of criteria. It was conducted during team visits in conjunction with the NFLPA's second annual team report card survey, the results of which are expected to be released in the months ahead. So that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, and I remember these, like, you hear these, and this isn't necessarily, like, exactly tied into, like, how successful those groups have been. Because you hear Aaron Glenn, number one, obviously Detroit's defense has kind of been hit or miss. So, you know, these aren't, honestly, you know, the Viking special teams is kind of taking a step back from where it was last year. So it's, you know, it's not necessarily like, oh, well, of course they're going to vote them high because they've got the number one offense. Well, that's not always the case. Obviously, the Dolphins, you know, that you expect to see that out there. But Thomas Brown, Carolina.
Yeah. In and out as play caller.
Right.
You
so
know.
it's
well, and it's interesting because some of those offensive coordinators are not play callers either.
Right.
You know, like Brian Schottenheimer doesn't call plays for the Cowboys. Who was the other? There was another one on there too. Kellen Moore, we know, calls plays. Who was Frank Smith doesn't call plays for the Dolphins.
Right.
It's Mike McDaniel. You know, so, and Brian Callahan, I don't think does he call plays for the Bengals? Maybe he does. I can't remember.
I don't know if Zach Taylor does or not.
I can't remember off the top of my head. I know we have a Bengals fan that sometimes listens, so if you're listening,
let us know, please.
Let us know. I can't remember I think Zach Taylor calls plays. I could be wrong though. So, but anyways, I'd love to see that whole list.
I would too.
I would really like to see.
It's not going to happen, but I would enjoy it.
Yep.
Just a quick peek.
Just who's last? Who's now? Can they do head coaches? Would they do head coaches? You think?
I don't know.
I think that would almost give fodder to maybe teams firing coach. Well, if they only release a top five, I guess.
Top five, I mean, it would be.
Yeah.
Maybe if.
Or then maybe they would say, well, then a head coach is probably going to ask for a pay raise if he's like one of the lowest paid ones.
Right. Look at me. I'm number 3.
Yeah. Got to pay me third most salary or whatever.
I am the third most liked head coach in the league.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I know it was on Sunday. Don't need to rehash it, but I want to ask you. Did Kevin O'Connell overthink the quarterback thing?
I think he overthought it from not necessarily from who he went with, but his approach. And I like Kevin O'Connell, but there are some things that he does that I wish he would maybe think more about. And to me, throughout this whole revolving carousel, I've kind of been of the feeling that, like, look, I don't think any of the three are necessarily heads and shoulders above the other. Like, normally when you're going to, you know, your backup quarterbacks, it doesn't go well. They're, you know, the Browns are, the obvious, you know, exception to the rule, but they just have a really good roster. So that can kind of help. And Joe Flacco's kind of putting together a bit of like a Case Keenum-like run here.
Right. Yep.
But the thing I've noticed is, especially after like the first couple weeks of the Josh Dobbs era, if you want to call it that, into Nick Mullins, into Jaron Hall, back to Nick Mullins, was Kevin O'Connell seems like he doesn't like to change a whole lot with the offense and just says, well, this is just what you're going to have to do. And I'm not sure, especially when you're going to like a younger quarterback, I'm not sure you're helping them because, well, what's a good way to, you know, help a young quarterback? Quick throws, short throws, easy throws, like get in.
Especially when you got guys like Addison and Jefferson.
Right. Give them the ball and let them do the work. What there were, you know, in that game against Packers, what were there? There were a lot of long developing routes, like, and the Packers defensive line was getting home. Like, they really took it to the Vikings offensive line. Like, that's a tough spot to put a young quarterback in. And I just hope kind of going into this offseason, maybe there's a bit of kind of self-analysis from Kevin O'Connell to say, okay, well, maybe I got to do a little more sometimes to help with. It's not a bad thing to throw, you know, a 5-yard, you know, little hitch route to Justin Jefferson and say, hey, go make a move on a guy.
Right. I was joking around with a buddy of mine watching that game, and he was the first who mentioned it. He's like, I don't know if I can't remember last time I saw the Packers do corner blitzes. And I'm like, hey, you're kind of right. But at the same time, I'm like, that's a credit to Joe Barry. But that's the difference of corner blitzing a rookie quarterback that doesn't have a lot of experience as opposed to maybe a guy like Kirk Cousins who recognizes that, gets the ball out quicker.
Right.
You know, that sort of
There's
thing.
just certain things you're able to do against the guy who's a rookie quarterback, and that you're maybe not to against the veteran. You're right. It's just the processing, the kind of understanding of things like that. And look, I mean, there's no way around it. That game was a butt kicking. Like that, that was a game where I think
Did it feel like, from your perspective, because I've said it a few times this week, but I'm curious to get yours. On my side of things, it felt like Matt LaFleur Packers offense were just a step ahead of Brian Flores.
Yes.
Did you feel it? Okay.
Yeah, like it just seemed like they kind of had an answer whenever. They just kind of had an answer every time they needed it.
Mm-hmm.
The third down offense, the efficiency was really, really good. Like they ran the ball well enough, but it just seemed like a wear on the Vikings. A lot of open receivers for the Packers, and that's you gotta give that to the offense and to Matt LaFleur for kind of scheming that up, just kind of knowing where the open spots were going to be against those various defenses that Brian Flores called.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting. Like on Monday was a lot of them, and I haven't heard too much of it now. And now that we're Friday, I'd be curious to see if fans have the same thought, or maybe that adrenaline has kicked in a little bit more. But a lot of Packers fans on Friday or on Monday kind of said, regardless of what happens on Sunday, successful season. Which kind of caught me off guard that we had a lot of them. So like, oh, okay, kind of changing the tune there a little bit, like, and a lot of it's Jordan Love, because that answers some questions there. I'd be curious if that changed now because the adrenaline, like I said, kicks is like, oh no, now I want to beat the Bears, one win and we're in. But with that, I mean, you look at the Bears, they're 7-9. There's a chance 3 teams could finish 8-9 in this division. The Bears beat the Packers and the Vikings win. And we know the Bears with their draft picks coming in.
Yeah, they're in a good spot heading into the offseason as far as draft capital goes.
Yep. Green Bay kind of looks like they've answered the quarterback question for their future. Kirk Cousins, is he going to be back in Minnesota or not? The stock, though, in the NFC, are all these teams trending up, or which teams do you think are trending upward as we end this season and maybe looking into next year? Would you say Green Bay's arrow's up?
I think so.
Chicago up?
I think so.
Detroit's
they are, and that's for them last year. Minnesota, honestly, of the 4, I think they're the one you can make the case maybe a little bit more of a even.
Yeah.
Because they've got a lot of questions to answer, and for them, it's because it's the quarterback.
Right.
That's kind of the big question. Like, what are you going to do there?
And in your, like Austin was saying a little bit earlier, I know you couldn't hear, but JJ is going to get a big contract. Justin Jefferson,
right? Justin Jefferson, Wilton Hunter's a free agent after this year.
Mm-hmm. He earned some money this year.
I would say he's done exactly what he needed to do to give him that big contract. They've got some extensions on the horizon with Christian Darrisaw and maybe some other guys. So they're going to have some questions to answer. So it's going to be a very interesting offseason when that time comes. But obviously, unlike me, realistically, you don't necessarily have to start thinking about the offseason quite yet. We'll see how Sunday goes.
Hey, you're not out of it.
There's a 3% chance.
There's
like 5. I think there's like 5 results that need to happen.
Yeah, there's 20. I think it was 20 teams that are still mathematically alive entering this final week. Now, obviously, a lot of them have better chances than some.
Right.
But it's still, NFL loves it.
Of course. You go into that last week, the more teams you have.
Right.
My goodness.
Exactly. But I feel like the NFC North is now maybe getting to the point. Let's call it a spade. Green Bay dominated it for a lot, even though Minnesota, the graphics showed it on the telecast, they've won more division championships.
Yeah.
But within the last 10, 15 years,
right.
Is it getting to the point now with those arrows trending upward, with the Lions now winning it? Chicago, with their young talent. Green Bay now with kind of going with a younger movement net, where like the division I keep coming back to is like AFC North.
Kind of, where in some ways you can make a case for a bunch of different teams.
Mm-hmm.
And they've kind of all ascended. And I think that is a pretty good example because the Lions and the Bears, for more often than not, for a while, have been kind of down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can kind of maybe draw similar comparisons to like the
Bengals
the Bengals and the Browns.
Yep.
The Bengals got their quarterback in Joe Burrow, even though he's hurt right now. And then the Browns, they've kind of just rebuilt that whole roster. Like that's just a good roster. Like, Deshaun Watson was not a reason they're in the spot they're in right now. I mean, and they're going to have some questions to answer for that contract coming up because it's not great for them. But, that roster just in general, when you go outside that, that quarterback spot is really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Vikings and the Packers have kind of been more of the consistent teams. I mean, you can say closer to, like the Steelers and the Ravens maybe, but yeah, I think that's a bit of an apt comparison.
Mm-hmm. And that's good for the division too. As much as we like to have our teams be,
You love to
the
dominate,
drops,
but for when it comes to rivalries and it's good when things are competitive.
I agree. All right, we got about a minute and a half until the top of the hour here, so we'll kick off the 8 o'clock hour with Cream of the Crop. Then we'll talk some more football. Then we got an extended picks and predicts segment coming up at about 8:40. Not only are we going to make some game picks, but we're going to predict whether is this Bill Belichick's final game as a Patriots head coach. Prop bets in this thing here. So, and also we're going to predict the playoff schedule. Because Brandon and I just love the whole Saturday afternoon.
Yes, we do.
And the Monday night game too, I guess we got to throw in there too. That's kind of like,
because it's always one you got to kind of like weigh. It's like where do they put the most emphasis?
Right. Yep. So I already know it. I feel like I'll just tip one of mine. If I do pick Green Bay and say they get the 7th seed, I feel like it's the Packers Cowboys Sunday afternoon on Fox.
It has to be, right? Can we
It's
find a way to just bring back Madden and Summerall, like
right? Yeah,
from the great beyond to call that one.
Exactly. I feel like if that's going to be it, I already know that's got to be the Sunday afternoon.
Now, when is it 100% the NFL like picks which game is when, or do like networks have any say?
I'm not sure,
because obviously that's one that Fox, NBC, and ESPN would all be saying, please.
Yep, exactly. So, all right, 2 in. We got one more to go. Send me your predictions. Do the Packers win on Sunday and get into the postseason? We'll talk about it. Third and final hour on this Friday morning. Football Friday, the last regular season football Friday, coming at you. We're going to get to some more football talk. It's good to hear from you, Surveyor. It's been a while, man. Says AI, Madden, and Summerall calling the playoffs.
Ooh.
As long as it's not the same AI Lombardi one. Remember that in the Super Bowl, the COVID Super Bowl, where they had like the Lombardi? It looked like Lombardi, but the voice did not sound like it. But apparently it was like they figured out his voice with all these, like, they added all together. It didn't sound like any of the clips over there, but as long as it doesn't sound like that.
Well, you could otherwise you could probably just go back, I'm sure, splice over some Madden Summerall to get it in there.
Yeah.
I'm sure at some point they've said love.
Probably.
We just have to look at
it's like bad lip reading or like the voiceovers of like Japanese kung fu movies.
Right. Well, otherwise you would just have to look at any time John Madden was talking about Brett Favre. I'm sure he said love a few times in there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And let's be real, Pat Summerall, when he was a play-by-play, not a whole lot.
No, like the thing that made Pat Summerall so good was I think he was very minimalist with it. Like he wasn't the kind of guy that felt like he needed to talk a lot. Like he let the situation breathe. And I mean, obviously he was also letting Madden do his thing too. That's why it worked so well.
And what was it? The Super Bowl 31, Favre to Horizon, touchdown, and he does the dance or something like that.
Yeah.
Didn't go too overboard.
Right.
Not like, and I'm not dissing him because I love it. Not like Kevin Harlan.
Right.
Or Gus Johnson.
Just different people at different approaches.
Yep. All right. Let's do a little cream of the crop this morning. All right, cream of the crop here, Brandon. We'll go with you first. Who do you got?
Well, I mean, it's been a few weeks, so there's some ground to cover, but I'm going to go back to something that was around Christmas, and I am going to give mine to Herb Cole.
Oh, okay, good one. Yep.
Longtime Vikings. He doesn't need that much heartbreak in his life. A longtime Bucks owner, passed away right around Christmas, and look, Herb Cole is the reason the Milwaukee Bucks are still in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go back and look. Herb Cole's tenure leading the Bucks was far from perfect. I mean, there was a lot of people that had a lot of frustration with him at times because he refused to, tank.
Yep.
He was always desperately trying to remain in the middle, and some would say the middle is kind of the worst place you can be as a franchise in a major sport.
Right.
But it always came from a place of passion for the team, for the state. And I think that was something that and you can disagree with kind of the approaches, whether it was, making a big move at the trade deadline to get JJ Redick so you could be like a 7 or an 8 seed. Ultimately, that wasn't good long term, but it was because he wanted to see the team, have success, make the playoffs. And, that was, he is someone that's done a lot for the state. I just think that, when he sold the Bucks, the thing was you're not moving. Whoever I'm selling it to, you get offered more money to sell the Bucks to people that would move them to Seattle. And he said, no, that's contingent. If this is a contingency part of this plan, whoever I'm selling it to, you're keeping them in Milwaukee.
And he paid his own money to help with the financing of the stadium too.
Pfizer format. Yeah. He dropped I think it was $100 million.
I thought it was 100.
It was I think it was 9 figures. So I mean, he's someone that. And I'm glad that the Bucks were able to win a championship while he was still alive, to kind of enjoy it, to kind of, get that moment in the sun. But, he's someone that I think just deserves a little praise for keeping the Bucks here at a time when, let's be honest, there's a lot of people in the state that wouldn't have cared if they left.
Right.
The Bucks were in the worst place worst place you could be. They were irrelevant in the state.
Yeah. That's a good pick, man. That's a very good pick. I'm probably going to upset some people in mine, but College Football Playoff Committee. You got it was a business decision with their Final Four, and it worked out.
You can't. I mean, it's hard to argue it.
Yeah,
it's hard to argue it.
Those games were fantastic.
Yes, they were.
And I'm excited for Monday. One reason is because it's different. We're not the whole Georgia, Alabama, and it's not to say that they don't deserve to be in there in the years past, but it's just something a little different. You got a Michigan defense and that Washington offense that I'm really excited about. It was just fantastic games on Monday.
Right.
It was fantastic.
I have to ask, what broadcast did you watch? Because obviously ESPN gives you several options.
I watched I didn't watch the McAfee one.
Okay.
And I did not. I initially had the no commentator one, and it was a little weird for me. So I went to Fowler. I love Chris Fowler. So he's
Fowler.
So solid.
Fowler and Herb Street. I really enjoy.
Yep. I went back to the traditional.
I watched the Sky Camcast.
Okay.
Which was it's the video game behind the offense.
Yep.
And which it kind of got a little goofy during the Sugar Bowl a little bit. I think they're having some issues. And there is no commentary, which is interesting because all you hear is the crowd and the band. And I just thought that was really cool. Like that's what I watched for both of those games. It was really cool. I liked it.
Yep. They got it right. Results showed they should be patting themselves on the back.
Right. It was, I mean, obviously the Rose Bowl had a bigger crowd, but it's not starting at close to 9:00 on the East Coast.
Right. Yep. So, but they were very good games.
They were.
They
were start to finish, competitive, engaging.
And it's not to say Michigan and Georgia would have been any different. But well done, and I'm excited for Monday. I'm definitely excited. So, all right, that's cream of the crop for this morning. Packers Bears, send us your predictions for the game. Do you think Green Bay is going to punch their ticket to the postseason? You think they'll get the 7th or the 16th? Because when you look at this slate of games coming up here, which starts tomorrow, remember, Saturday games tomorrow, we got Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and we got an AFC South battle between two teams who are drafting in the top 5 last year, and they can make the postseason now, Colts and Texans. They got the night game tomorrow night. So it starts tomorrow. But it's intriguing when you look at some of these games because you do have teams who are resting players, right? So like Pittsburgh, they got to win, obviously, but they won't know if they win if they're going to be in because they still need a little help. But Baltimore's resting, even though they got a week off. Lamar's not playing in this game. Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley, I think, is going to be starting in the game. But, Pittsburgh, too. That game to me is so fascinating because – and I agree, you ride with Mason Rudolph, the guy who's gotten you to this point. But, you got Baltimore kind of resting some players, and it's in Baltimore, but does Baltimore want to still knock out Pittsburgh?
I say it's still Ravens Steelers.
Right, yeah.
Like, the Ravens would love nothing more
exactly
than to knock Pittsburgh out.
Right, exactly. And then you got Houston and the Colts, which anybody who thought they'd be in this position, I think you're kidding yourselves.
Houston at the start of the year, the Colts after Anthony Richardson got hurt.
Yep, exactly. So, and then, the Rams and 49ers one is interesting for the fact for Packers fans, you do have to pay attention to that one a little bit too, because Rams are locked into a playoff spot, but they're not locked into a seed, but they're resting their guys. 49ers already locked things up too. So it's almost like a battle of who wants to just lose this game, or just kind of get through this game unscathed. But Green Bay wins and the Rams lose. Green Bay is a 6th seed, which could be the difference between playing either Dallas or even Detroit, or maybe even Philly somehow if they get back in that mix of Detroit, because would it not be a typical Washington thing if they screw up and beat the Cowboys and move a little bit further down in the draft order sort of thing? So, and would it really surprise you if the Cowboys lose that game heading into the postseason? Probably wouldn't surprise me too much. So, but it's just kind of a weird weekend because, especially if you're doing picks, how much do you factor into this whole,
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, it's not just the standard. Well, who's good? Which team do I think is going to win? Team A, Team E. There's a lot of things you have to think about.
Right. Yeah. And I know, Kansas City, they're locked into 3, so they don't have anything to play for. And you got the Chargers in that game, but. And then Buffalo Miami is clearly the best game of the weekend, which
right. That's why it's in primetime.
You have a team that is literally could be the 2 seed or out of the postseason. That much of a difference.
That's crazy
heading into this game. And I know at the beginning of the season I really wanted to pick the Dolphins to go to the Super Bowl. I was just high on them, but it sucks for them they lose Bradley Chubb.
That's a big loss.
That's a big loss for this team. I like the Dolphins. I want to see them do well, but I just that Bradley Chubb loss. I don't know if that's gonna.
And then I'm sure seeing what the Ravens did.
Yeah.
Those back-to-back wins over the 49ers and the Dolphins, the way they did it is.
You almost wonder though, the Ravens, do they want the bye just to keep that momentum going?
Because essentially they're giving themselves 2 weeks. And that's always, back in the old days of the 6 teams, that was something you you really had to think of more was,
Yep.
do you want 1 week? Do you want 2 weeks?
Yep.
Like, because sometimes 2 weeks teams came out rusty.
Right. Exactly. And there's a chance for the first time too, Brandon, that we might see something new in the postseason. Patrick Mahomes actually playing on the road. Think about that. That guy's never played on the road in the postseason. That's insane.
It's crazy
to think about. We might see it, but again, never know
because
they are the 3 seed.
Let's say the 3 seed, the way they're playing. I mean, it's not exactly super inspiring.
Right. So, the Ravens to me are the clear cream of the crop. But you're right. Does that 2-week thing factor into this? Because remember when Lamar won his first MVP, they were the 1 seed, I think. And they were a little rusty because I think that's when the Titans beat them. And I think that's when the Titans went on that run where they got to the AFC Championship game and lost the Chiefs. I think that year. I think that was that year. But I know because you still have the narrative that Lamar can't win the postseason. But can we please somehow get Browns versus Ravens in the postseason playing against each other?
With Art Modell's ghost just hovering over the stadium.
And Joe Flacco going up against his old team.
The Matt Stover Bowl.
Yes. Can we make it happen? Maybe Baltimore brings back some guys from that Super Bowl team like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed on the field, and that would just be awesome. And then Joe Flacco wins it too. Because remember too, Joe Flacco's last game with the Ravens was a playoff game that he got taken out of for Lamar Jackson. I think it was in Jacksonville when Jacksonville went to the AFC Championship that year. Might have been that game. Can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, that was because that was Lamar's rookie year. So do you have, I mean, I don't know. I'm still going back and forth on some picks here. I might have to bring up the playoff machine when we do picks.
I was going to ask if you were going to do that, so that way then we have our matchups and we can,
I'll open up 2 windows.
Yeah, you're going to have to
do that. So we can do that. And because for our viewing schedule too, that we're going to make picks for here coming up. But also, okay, I'm going to throw this at you too, Brandon. Give you some time to think about it. Because we'll know the number by the time I chat with you again on Friday. How many job openings are going to be? Head coaching job openings. Because they're going to come fast and furious in the next couple days.
Right. And
we know a couple already. Panthers and Raiders are open.
Chargers too.
So,
yeah.
Yep, that's
I'm just going to take a quick look at like a list of
Washington's probably.
I think Washington.
I saw a line. I don't think Tampa Bay's making a change. Even
I don't think so. They've obviously last week was disappointing, but I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Because I saw some numbers it could be as high as 9 or 10 out there, and I don't think it's going to get that high. I think Washington would be 4. Arizona's not making one.
The first number that popped in my head was 5.
Yeah, because again, don't tip your pick. The New England one's kind of the wild card out there. But I don't think it's going to be like 9 or 10 at that point. That's because I feel like now Matt Eberflus has saved his job with Chicago.
Yes.
I think I know it's kind of been reported that they're leaning towards him coming back, but okay. Another one I just thought of too, another prop pick. Do the Bears keep Justin Fields? We got some time on that one, maybe, but
that's one.
Maybe we'll put that one in the bank. We'll put that one in the bank.
Now, this is what we think is going to happen, or what? Yeah, I suppose because we can't necessarily grade out what what we think, what we would do versus because obviously you can't grade that out because we don't get to make that decision.
I will say though, I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. rumor thing is starting to pick up steam to Chicago. I don't know if you've been seeing the Instagram stuff. Apparently, Harrison Jr. and DJ Moore have been kind of chit-chatting. Apparently, they got
Ohio State connection with Harrison Jr.
and Fields. It's like, shoot. that
and the fact that obviously the Caleb Williams 1-1 isn't as prominent as it was 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And part of that is I think it's paralysis by analysis. Whenever you see someone that's up there that much, like that first year, it's always like, oh, this is the generational talent. And then the second year, it's like, well, you're kind of almost picking at him too much. But I think with Caleb Williams, there is some things people are going to wonder about.
Because it almost reminded me, remember the whole tank for Tua?
Yeah.
And then he still went to Miami, but at 5.
Right. He wasn't the top overall.
Because it was Trevor, right? Trevor was number 1.
I forget
was
if that was the same year.
I think it was. But which is still kind of weird because we were talking about Trevor Lawrence's freshman year at Clemson.
Right.
Going in the draft. So all right, let's take a quick break and we'll talk some football, more Packers Bears chats. Send us your keys to victory, your key matchups, your predictions. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Our resident Bengals fan didn't answer the question we had a little bit earlier, but did make a point to call me out and say it was Joe Burrow was number one, not Trevor Lawrence in that debate. What are you looking at me like that for? Put your headphones on. Do you not remember what we were just discussing?
Vaguely.
Tua?
Yeah,
Tank
okay,
for
that
Tua?
was it was that year. Okay, it was.
Sorry, man. Settle down. Settle down. That's why we said we didn't know.
Calm down. Have some coffee.
Oh, boy. Packers, Bears, though. It's Bears week, though. Are you holding on any hope that you guys can magically sneak in, or are you like what Austin
Nope.
said an hour ago? Said
No.
I don't even want to go.
No,
in
I don't.
at this
No, I
point."
don't believe in the 3% odds.
No?
I don't think they're very likely.
You're telling me there's a chance. I don't even want to look at your scenario right now because I think I'd get confused.
It's I could probably think of it out loud. I mean, it's Bears win, it's Seahawks lose, or so
Okay.
Cardinals win, and it would basically. I think there would have to be a big tie. My guess is Tampa wins the South. The Saints would have to be even because the Vikings, they're
Mhm.
yeah. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know. I
We
think
don't need to-
somehow the Badgers have to beat Nebraska tomorrow by at least 15. There's
That
just
probably factors into. You know what? I forgot about this. I saw the video of it the other day, but I remember following along as soon as I saw it. Remember? I don't know if you'd remember, but it was 1999, the Ray Rhodes era. All roads lead to championships, and it was Berman doing the countdown, or not the countdown, but primetime, I think, and it was Packers versus. Was it Packers versus Cardinals? I can't remember the two teams. But anyways, it was point differential.
yeah.
The whole point differential tiebreaker. They were going back and forth.
I remember that.
Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. Seeing that episode of Primetime.
Because Saints were involved in it because Jake Delhomme was the Saints starting quarterback. So Berman was going back and forth.
Instead of doing all the highlights for one game, he was going back and forth because the point differential mattered between the teams.
Yeah, exactly. And it didn't matter anyways because the Cowboys, I think, won that day and Packers didn't go to the postseason because they needed the Cowboys to lose at that point. So, but I saw that the other day. I'm like, oh, they're the point differential tiebreaker. Let's bring. Oh, that was cool. Very, very, nerve-wracking trying to follow that along. But I wish I would have been at Lambeau that day because they had to have had that plastered.
You have to
all
have the score up,
yeah.
and then every time someone scores, it's either yay.
It would be
had
to have
a
a coach calling down to Ray Rhodes, be like, "No, you got to throw it.
Keep the foot on the gas here.
Got to throw it. We can't run out the clock right now." So
sportsmanship be darned.
Yeah, exactly. And that was so. I mean, you got points. There was a boatload of points. Oh, yeah, because that was Ditka, I think, with the Saints on that sideline too. I think it was. That would be right.
Yeah.
Oh, good times. I think did Tampa play Dallas? I can't remember. But anyways, so Packers Bears. A lot of talk about how well the Bears defense has been playing lately. Number 1 in quarterback rating. They're tops in rushing yards allowed. Tops in interceptions and takeaways and that sort of stuff. And especially when you look at the last few weeks here, Brandon. But my question is, how much should you factor in who they've played these last few weeks? So, just for an example, this is from Zach Cruz. Over the last 7 games, the Bears have faced number 31, number 23, number 25, number 22, and number 26 ranked offenses by DVOA. 2 of those games in the last 7 were against the Lions, who are number 5. They gave up 31 points on the road and then 13 at home. When you look at it the last few weeks or so, how do I want to phrase this? How much do we factor in how well the Bears defense has been playing, or should you factor in who they've also played? I'm not trying to diminish it, but do you have to factor that into it?
I think so. I think it's both. I think it's 2 things. One, because there's something to be said for a team playing well and feeling good about itself. But at the same time, there was also a stretch where the Vikings played. It was similar, where the Vikings played teams that weren't necessarily super great on offense, and the defense played well.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I'm not saying they're going to kind of fall off a cliff a little bit like the Vikings defense has those last 3 weeks, but I mean, you look at, I think part of it too is the Montez Sweat acquisition was big. I mean, trading for him and then signing that extension, that gives them a legitimate, like, upper tier pass rusher to worry about. Obviously Badger fans are familiar with some of the linebackers with TJ Edwards coming over from the Eagles and Jack Sanborn. They paid a bunch of money to Tremaine Edwards. That's a good linebacker core. The secondary, Eddie Jackson can, do some things. We'll see if Jalen Johnson plays. Sounds like he wants to give it a go. But I mean, there's some players there. But right. I do think that, maybe because of who they've played, they were playing maybe a bit above their heads. But I'm not going to say, like they're scrubs and they're, the right. worst defense in the league, that kind of thing. But, this is going to be one of the, biggest tests for them in that stretch. I mean, them and maybe, obviously, you mentioned Detroit. One of those two.
I do feel like there's the motivating factor involved in this too. Chicago would love nothing more to come into Lambeau and the Packers playoff hopes, right? That factors into it. Factored in for Detroit last year.
I was going to say, and I think for Chicago too, is they can just look at Detroit and see how that springboard them this year and say, hey, we want to be that team. And yeah, you're right. I mean, they would love to go in there and do it. But it's not just to do it. It's also because it could give you some serious momentum going into the offseason. You got the number one pick no matter what.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. What do you think is the biggest key to victory for Green Bay in this point? Like mine, you look at the turnovers, and Chicago has been really good in intercept, number one in the entire NFL, but really good in the last few weeks at getting interceptions and taking the ball away. But Jordan Love has also been the best quarterback since week 11 at not throwing picks. He's only thrown one. To me, that is one of the biggest keys in this game is who's going to, and you can say that for a lot of games, right? I mean, you look at turnover battles and that determines a lot of winners. Not all the time, but a lot. But I feel like in this game, more so than not, that's where this Bears defense has really played well, is taking that ball away, turning the ball over. So I feel like whoever wins that is going to have a big leg up in this one.
Right. I'm going to go with, how can Green Bay contain the running ability of Justin Fields? Because to me, that's it.
And Herbert has had over 100 yards
right.
last 2
and
days.
They to me, the Packers defense, like we talk about, the third and long, basically teams have been able to convert third and long because, the Packers have rushed 3 and drop 8. But to me, the Packers are a defense that are susceptible to getting a run on at times. We've seen it a different way. We saw the Giants run for 200 yards on them with a mobile quarterback. Obviously, Justin Fields is a lot more mobile than, Tommy DeVito. But to me, if it comes down to, can the Packers defense between, Khalil Herbert and Rashawn Johnson and whoever else and Justin Fields, because he's obviously a big part of that run game, how can they, can they contain that? Can they keep him from running wild as he has at times? Because that's kind of the great equalizer of, if Justin Fields beats you passing, I think you just kind of tip your hat.
Yeah.
Just because, he's an elite runner. He's not an elite passer. If he can just beat you by carving you up through the air, well, then you say, you know what, it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if he can do that.
I feel like it's got to be very disciplined, very controlled style defense, setting the edge, not over pursuing, collapsing the pocket, that sort of, not allowing Fields to step up or hit the edge, that sort of stuff. I also feel like, okay, Jair's back. Use him. If he's got a little, angst or anything, go out there and say, just go stop DJ Moore. Let the other 10 guys take care of everything else so we can focus on that. Just go out there and you're going to be on DJ Moore and go do your thing. You're the highest paid corner. Go play like it now. And just let the other 10 guys kind of focus on Fields in the running game.
And you're not the captain.
Wouldn't it be funny, though, if he is out there for the coin toss? Would that not be awesome on Sunday? He's probably going to get the loudest cheer when we're at Lambeau. And he's out. I don't think they would do it.
I don't think they would because I kind of.
They would almost make fun of their own suspension.
Right. And you don't want to do that. But.
Right.
It would be funny.
It would be funny. It would really be, as they would like to say, ironic over there. But I just, I think you got to let Alexander go do his thing and just, as you said, If he's going to beat you through the air, you kind of tip your cap. Well, then don't let him just continue to target DJ Moore. So go put your best corner on him. Go put your highest paid corner on him and focus the other 10 guys on Justin Fields, Khalil Herbert. And I don't want to mention Cole Kmet. He's a solid tight end,
but obviously those other guys come 1st.
Right. So
Equimini St. Brown. Packers legend.
Is he still even on the roster?
Packers legend.
Is he still there?
I think so.
Okay. I don't know. I know Lucas Patrick is still there.
Yeah, another Packers legend.
Another Packers legend there too. So offensively, I feel like too Green Bay, we mentioned a little bit earlier, but with like the Vikings, I feel like they got to be almost that step ahead offensively. Whether it's play calling or something, because they felt like they were that way against the Chiefs. They were that way against the Lions on Thanksgiving, that way against Minnesota, kind of being that step ahead with everything. And it seems like Green Bay is going to have all their playmakers. Christian Watson seems like he's going to play. Luke Musgrave looks like he's going to play. Devondre Campbell looks like he's going to play, which is depth-wise now with Isaiah McDuffie up in the air big time too. So I'm not expecting big things from Watson, but just having him on the field, I think, opens up some more stuff too.
I think, if you're the defense, he's someone that you always got to kind of keep that side eye on, does he go deep?
This is easily, though, Jordan Love's biggest game of his young career, right?
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Yep. He has a chance to set the bar pretty high.
He has a chance to do something Aaron Rodgers didn't do last year.
Yeah. So, will he do it, though? Will he do it? Let's do some extended picks. All right. We'll take a quick break, and I'll get the playoff machines lined up so Brandon and I can see who we've got making the playoffs here. They'll do all the tie-breaking stuff for us out there. Quick break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. All right, it's time for our update, or not updated, extended. That's what I was trying to find.
Extended
Picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room here in Eau Claire. Speaking of the Elbow Room, we got Garrett, who's tied in first place in our picks and predicts, or our Pro Football Pick'em Challenge on our website right now, which, again, with these games, Brandon, with teams resting dudes and getting ready for the postseason, could make these picks a little bit more interesting. But Garrett is tied for first place with Tim up there. You got Peter, Tom, and Darren, just 2 back. Ed, a few back on there too. I'm in fourth. I need some help here, so I might have to pick some upsets for the Pro Football Pick'em Challenge.
Swing for the fences
to get over there too. So, we were having fun. I was telling Brandon this in the off the air there, like Peter Schrager from Good Morning Football was saying. He tweeted out that Rams and 49ers could be one of those, quote, entertaining games because Shanahan doesn't want to show anything because they might play the Rams and vice versa with McVay. We're like, yeah, maybe one of the most boring games.
Right.
Then.
There's going to be a bunch of fullback dives.
Right, exactly. So that's where, how you going to pick that game?
Right.
That's going to be interesting to see how everybody plays out for our pickup challenge. But so let's do it. I'm going to go a little bit of a different order here because I got the playoff machine up. That way I can keep track of how our things go. So I'm not using our Pro Football Pick'em Challenge list because otherwise it's going to be too hard for me to do that. So let's start Steelers, Ravens. Who do you got, Brandon?
I'm going to take Baltimore.
Okay.
Even with no Lamar.
Well, you got a Pro Bowler, Tyler Huntley.
Yeah.
It's at Baltimore too. You know what? I'm going to go Steelers. I'll go Steelers in this thing. I don't know why. They got that running game going right now for Pittsburgh. So I'll go the Steelers. Maybe the second best game of the weekend or one of the better ones. Texans Colts at Indy.
Saturday night. With? Yeah. I'm going to go with Houston.
I am going to go with Houston as well, Brandon. So we got Tampa Bay versus Carolina then.
I will take Tampa. Obviously, a lot for them to play for.
Yep. Then we both here. Browns at the Bengals.
I'm going to go Bengals.
Ooh, okay. Because Flacco's not playing.
Flacco's not playing.
Think about that. They're resting Flacco for the postseason.
Imagine that saying that 3 months ago. The Cleveland Browns are resting Joe Flacco for the postseason.
Yep, exactly. And I know I was reading something on, or I saw, it might have been another radio host just blasting the Jets and Aaron Rodgers again because they didn't bring Flacco back to the Jets because there was that talk that Rodgers didn't want Flacco in the quarterback room, or like an ego thing. Like, boy, wow, okay. I also believe that's a shout out to Kevin Stefanski though in the offensive.
Right. I think he's a good fit for what they do.
Yep. With that being said, I'll go Bengals too. I'll go Bengals in this one too. Minnesota at Detroit.
I will take Detroit.
Okay. Detroit still has something to play for.
Right.
So I'll go Detroit too. Jets at the Patriots. And then I'll ask you the follow-up question to this game.
I will take the Jets.
I'm going to take the Patriots. And is this Bill Belichick's final game as Jets head coach, as Patriots head coach?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I think they're going to give him a chance. They're going to draft a quarterback.
Yep.
And they're going to kind of give him a chance to see if they can kind of, flush the last few years and restart it. I had to think about that for a bit, though.
I will say no. And honestly, when I first brought this question up, I was going to say yes.
I was leaning that way, but
I'll say no. However, he will get stripped of GM title. He won't have control of roster. That will be the common ground thing in between. If Bill wants to stay there, which I think he does. I think he does. Then he's going to have to give up control over the roster. I don't know how much this is true because you see reports and all that, but I saw this report yesterday that apparently Bill wanted to keep Matt Patricia as offensive coordinator this year, but Robert Kraft was the one that kiboshed it.
Well, good for you, Robert Kraft.
Yeah. I do wonder does Josh Daniels come back and Josh
McDaniels, yeah.
McDaniels come back in some capacity now?
Maybe.
So, even if it is his last one, he ain't losing his last game as a Patriots head coach to the Jets. So, Falcons at the Saints.
I'm gonna go Saints.
I'm gonna go Saints too, in this one. So, which would, yeah. We'll get to the AFC South stuff here in a second. But Jaguars at the Titans. Jaguars, remember, old preseason, a lot of people picked them as the one because of everybody else kind of beating up on each other.
Yeah.
And here we are, the Jaguars fighting to win the division.
They've been scrapping and clawing. I will take the Jaguars, though.
I'll be honest, I'm a little nervous for that game,
I don't feel super good about it, especially because, like I said, Tennessee is just one of those teams that it feels like on the right day they can beat anybody just with the way they play. But I'm going to take Jacksonville.
Yep, I'll take Jacksonville too, but I'm not confident in it. Seattle at Arizona.
I will take Seattle.
Yeah, I'm going to take Seattle in this one too. I'm going to save the Chicago and Green Bay one. But Chiefs at the Chargers.
I'm going to go Chiefs.
I'll go Chiefs too, even though no Patrick Mahomes and that. Chargers are just kind of a mess right now.
Right.
Broncos at the Raiders.
I'm going to go Raiders.
Go Raiders too.
I think Antonio Pierce has done a really good job. And I honestly, I think he should get that job.
I think he should. I still have my doubts.
I think he should, but I don't trust Mark Davis to save himself from himself.
I agree. Eagles, Giants.
Eagles.
Even though they're playing really bad right now, I'll still go Eagles. Boy, how that changed the landscape of the NFC now. Rams at the 49ers in what might be the most boring game of the weekend.
It might be. I'm going to go Rams.
Who's the backup? Oh, Carson Wentz versus Sam Darnold. That's what this game is. It's Carson Wentz, Sam Darnold. With that being said, so you're going Rams?
I am.
There's no way Carson Wentz is winning a football game, so I'll go Sam Darnold and the 49ers. I can't.
Former potential league MVP.
Yeah.
Versus the Lego Fireman.
That's awesome. Cowboys versus the Commanders.
I will take Dallas.
I'll take Dallas too. Although I've got a feeling that game's going to start off really close, and Cowboys are going to panic, and Cowboys fans are going to panic for a hot minute. Ooh. Bills at the Dolphins.
At the start of the year, I remember I picked the Bills to go Super Bowl.
You did?
I did. I picked Bills 49ers. I went with the Chris Berman special.
Yep. Nobody
circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to take Buffalo.
All right. Okay. You're going Buffalo. By the way, I appreciated Dan Patrick yesterday having both Dan Marino and Jim Kelly on at the same time. That was awesome. Thank you for that. I am going Dolphins. I think they bounce back and they get this win. So now the final game, not of the weekend, but our picks. Bears at the Packers. Who you got?
Because I know you can do it in the playoff machine, I kind of want to pick a tie. But I'm not going to do it. I don't have that ability like Hudson does to pick ties.
Just if you were wondering, based off your picks, I did it for you. Seattle would be the 7th. Rams would be the 6th.
Yep.
So
I will take Green Bay, though.
You're going to take Green Bay?
I will take Green Bay.
Which, okay. So then based off your picks, Green Bay would be the 7th seed. I'm going to pick Green Bay as well. And we do have different matchups.
Hey, there we go.
In our thing. So your playoff matchups, Brandon. Baltimore, bye. No big surprise. Your 2-seeded Buffalo Bills will take on the Houston Texans in a 2-7 matchup.
Ooh.
Finally, because we didn't get it earlier in the season, Tyreek Hill makes his long-awaited reappearance at Kansas City. Dolphins at Kansas City. And then Cleveland visits Jacksonville. That's not a bad lineup. I could get on board with that lineup. Heck yeah. NFC side of things, 49ers would have the bye. Green Bay visits Dallas. The Matthew Stafford Bowl, the Rams at the Lions. And then Philly visits Tampa Bay.
I have an intriguing playoff schedule. I'm not going to sugarcoat this.
I like yours better than mine. I really don't want to see this, but I think it's going to happen. Based off my picks, Pittsburgh makes it again, they would face the number 2 Miami. Then Houston still makes it, but they're a 6th seed and they visit Kansas City. And then we have the same Cleveland versus Jacksonville. San Francisco is my 1. I got the Rams at Dallas. Then I have Green Bay at Detroit. And then Philly at Tampa. So a little shout out to the old Favre to Sharp playoff game there. So now here's the other part that Brandon and I are doing here for our picks and predicts.
Because we are just gluttons for punishment.
Exactly. We're going to try to pick the schedule of games here. Now, as we've said many years, we always kind of make fun of it. It's that first Saturday wild card game. It always seems like it's Texans or Raiders or Bengals, in there. It's like kind of a poo-poo matchup, if you will. Not to say the games haven't been good, but they've been kind of like, at least on paper, maybe not the most glorious. However, does that change this year? Because Game 2 of Wild Card Weekend is only streamed exclusively on Peacock. So do they flip-flop that, knowing that the first game is going to be on NBC and Peacock, but Game 2 is going to be exclusively on Peacock? This is according to NBCSports.com. So, with your matchups, Brandon, who do you got for Game 1 in that Game 1 slot? NBC. Can't have Baltimore, can't have San Francisco, obviously.
Okay, so this is the Saturday night game.
The first Saturday afternoon game.
Oh, so it's NBC.
NBC has Game 1.
And then Peacock has Game 2.
Yeah, so Game 1 is NBC and Peacock.
Okay, and then Game 2 is Peacock.
Just Peacock, yes.
I have got Rams at Detroit.
For Game 1?
For Game 1.
Okay. You're going to go Rams in Detroit. That's a solid pick. I am going to go with... I'll go Houston at Kansas City as my first one. It's my first one. Texans at Kansas City. Game 1. Game 2.
Game 2, that's the Saturday night game. I'm going Jaguars-Browns.
That's where I wanted to go for mine too. So I'll stick with it, even though it's all. Can I have 2 AFC games? I can have 2 AFC games, right?
I think.
I don't think that matters. Do they? They don't flip flop, do they? No.
I don't know.
That's honestly who I was going to pick too. So we got the same one for Peacock. Browns versus Jaguars. Yeah, baby. So then that means we've got 3 on Sunday. The first wild card game on Sunday. It says TBD here for the network right now. So.
Yeah, because it depends.
Yeah.
My noon Sunday game is Chiefs-Dolphins.
Okay. My noon Sunday one then will be Pittsburgh Dolphins. I'll go that route. The Sunday afternoon, excuse me.
The 3:30 game, I've got Packers-Cowboys.
Solid. That's what I would have picked if Packers would be in a 7th seed for me. But since I'm not, I have to go Packers-Lions Sunday afternoon for that one. Which means, do we have the same Monday night game?
Maybe. Let's see.
Oh, yeah, we got Sunday
night.
Yeah, Sunday night. What do you got?
I got Eagles-Buccaneers.
I've got Rams and Cowboys.
Gotcha.
Sunday night, which means my Monday night is Eagles-Buccaneers.
I almost did, but my Monday night then would be Bills-Texans.
Okay.
Those two I went back and forth on a little bit.
Mm-hmm. All right, there you go, man. That's how we have it played.
We not only pick the games, we pick the order you're going to see them.
I'll be happy if I got one right.
I'm putting this in here because I'm putting it in my note because I'm honestly more excited about this than I am like who makes it now. Yeah. I just want to
I got one more pick for you though.
Okay.
Because you're not going to be on Monday. Michigan or Washington?
I'm going to go Washington.
Ooh.
I am going to go Washington. I've mentioned this on here before, but I'm in on Michael Penix. Even though I want Michael Penix in Minnesota.
His draft stock's rising right now.
It is. And look, he's not going to be in that Caleb Williams Drake mate tier because he has some warts to him. He's had some injuries. He has kind of a wonky delivery. He's a little bit older, but it's not like he's, Jason White out there.
You know what his delivery reminds me of a little bit? Vince Young.
Oh, Vince Young.
Philip Rivers is a good one too.
I would say that might not be the best for him, but
just that shorter kind of flick of the wrist delivery.
And it's weird because for as kind of wonky of a delivery it is, he's got a big arm. Like
his deep ball's awesome.
And the reason I connect him to Minnesota is a big reason is we were talking about kind of Kevin O'Connell and the long developing routes, how he wants to throw the ball down the field. To me, that's a good fit there for someone that does it. It's not obviously the offenses aren't the same, but I just think I think there's things that you can connect them together with. And Vikings, if they lose, will probably be picking around like 10th or 12th, something like that. I mean, there's a way they could move up even higher, but they need everything to break right. Michael Penix is not going to be a top 5 pick, I don't think, unless he totally blows up the combine, which I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Could it be an Anthony Richardson scenario though too, where he just skyrockets up a little bit?
I think Jaden Daniels might be more that guy though.
Yeah,
just that physical marvel.
I know we got a lot of time to talk draft, and you and I are this. But Caleb Williams and Drake May, as you said here, but then you've got the Jane Daniels, you got Michael Penix, and then Bo Nix.
You got Bo Nix, you got JJ McCarthy, who might be in there somewhere too. Like and people always talk about, we're going to talk up quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are always going to rise.
Oh yeah.
If you're a first round talent, you're going to go in the first round of your quarterback. But I liked what I saw out of Washington. I think to be able to hold up as they did against that Texas front, that not a lot of people talk about it because obviously Michael Penix gets a lot of it, but that Washington offensive line is good. Like they kept him clean.
Where is the title game off? Do you know?
Houston. Yeah. So
it's kind of middle. So.
It is. Like it would have been a little bit different if it was if it was Texas there, my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, the Sugar Bowl was already all burnt orange, but
I'm gonna go Michigan.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Michigan in mine.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
Now, as you and I, very loyal and proud Big Ten fans, are we chanting Big Ten during this game?
I've talked to former Badger players on this. It's on the latest episode of the podcast. I don't know if that's why you're referring to it.
This was just something I was thinking. But
so Joe was a former Badger lineman. Big Ten. Yeah. He cheers for Big Ten.
Well, here
but he won't wear the other.
No. I think there's a line.
But can't you say both teams are Big Ten now?
Let's put it this way: if Alabama was playing Texas in the national title game, would SEC people be claiming both teams? Absolutely.
Yeah, they would be. So
it's the same situation.
I agree. I would agree. All right, B. That's it. Brandon and I are going to record another episode of the podcast, another Top 5 Plus.
It's been a bit. And this is my pick. I've been looking forward to this one
for like a month.
I've had this down in my notes on my phone for like a month.
Yep, exactly.
I'm ready.
Enjoy the games. Garrett also wants to give a shout out and good luck to everyone on the picks. Should be a difficult week this week. We'll be back Monday morning.